evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Troutdale Budget Committee for Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. We can have roll call, please.
Mayor Rittman.
Here.
Councillor Andrews.
Here.
Councillor Allen. Here. Councillor One.
Present.
Councillor White.
Here.
Councillor Davidson.
Here.
Councillor Laney.
Here.
Tammy Stephenson.
Here.
Jean Bent.
Here.
Chris Barney.
Here.
Victoria Rizzo.
Here.
Rich Allen.
He's on his way to work.
Heidi Timberman.
Here.
Paul Wilcox.
Here.
We've done a roll call and quorum. So tonight's preview, regulatory requirements, we'll get out of the way here just momentarily, then we'll continue with department budget reviews, and then we'll get into the general fund recap after the break, and we address the Urban Renewal Agency budget. So, public comment on the proposed budget. Again, like manner, 5 minutes per speaker. Limited items on the proposed budget. Other city issues will come out of order at this meeting. And so, Chair would open a public comment on the proposed budget tonight. We'll resume in writing and in voting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mueller. At this time, I'd like to open the public comment period for the budget for the City of Troutdale for fiscal year 2025-2026. Comments should be specific to the budget, and any citizen may speak to any item relative to the budget. Did you receive any written comments? Did not. Okay. Anyone online wishing to speak this evening, please unmute yourself. Seeing none. Anyone in chambers wishing to speak this evening? Come forward, sir.
You go first.
The chair there at the end.
Wait a second, microphone. Well, there's a mic right here.
Yes.
Is this one live?
Yes.
I'm Warren Bruce Wasson. I've lived in this city for 44 years. And I've been investigating this current budget, and having looked at it, find some real deficiencies in it for the taxpayer, i.e. me, or anybody that lives in this city. I did some preliminary figures on my own house, and my house is assessed for tax purposes $158,000, and that's because I get a veteran's discount because I'm disabled. That would have cost me an additional $474 a year, which doesn't sound like much. But my house is a small, single-level ranch, and most of these houses in this city are not single-level ranch like mine. So the taxes that would go up on this thing for whatever you do for fire or police could be very prohibitive. I did some figuring that my house is assessed for the market at $426,000, which would mean $106 a month in additional taxes every year. Now, I don't know who come up with this lame $3 plus property tax stuff, but I gotta tell you, that's coming out of my pocket and anybody's pocket who lives in this city. And all of you, I think, live in this city. So I have to ask myself, what are you guys doing to this? If I didn't have that exemption as a veteran, I'd be in real hurt. And if they want to drive property taxes up, they're going to have me on the wrong side of that argument. I don't care who gets the contract or what comes out of that contract, but I don't like it. And here's the thing of it. This city has got to realize the taxpayers of this city are not their own personal ATM. We need to leave this police and the fire budget in the general fund and not take it out of the general fund so that the city can have a whole bunch of money to play with. I am not going to pay extra taxes just to make them happy. I'm appalled at some of the money that some of these city employees are making. I didn't even come close to that kind of money when I was working. And I got to tell you, one of them makes over $200,000 a year. The president barely makes more than that. And he runs the country. And as a longtime resident, I'm appalled at what's going on. Thoroughly appalled. And then our good old state government wants to do this. They want to add a wage tax of 125% increase over the 0.1% wage tax on all Oregon employee paychecks to 0.18 to fund bus services. They want a gas tax of 50% increase. They want to create a new 1% car tax, create a new 3% tire tax, create sales tax of 0.6, a 60% increase of the sales tax on cars from 0.05 to 0.08. DMV title fees, 100% increase, an increase of $90. Currently, fees range from $90 to $190. DMV vehicle registration fee increased by $66. Weight mile tax, 16.9% increase. New EV road use charge. It creates a new road use charge for electric vehicles because there's not enough gas vehicles out there. Creates new delivery vehicle charge, establishes charges for delivery companies with more than 10 vehicles. And you know who's going to pay these taxes? We will. It'll get down to us eventually. Now, who's the genius that thinks this stuff up? And a 60% increase in the budget to pay for police and fire is obscene at best. And whoever negotiated a contract for the employees of this city should be asked to pay the money back that we paid them. I am just thoroughly fed up with some of the things I'm seeing. Oh, here's another one for you bike riders. Bike tax, 63% increase. Increases current bike tax from $15 to $24.90 for all bikes over $200. We are the most heavily taxed state in the nation. And I, for one, am fed up paying taxes. And I tell everybody on this committee to throw this thing out and vote on something that makes sense. Keep it in the general fund where it belongs.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Next.
Other than that, I'm not upset.
Great, thank you.
It's trying to hang. This one. That's me.
You're good. We'll pick you up.
If it's red is, okay. Hi, I'm Gail Stevens. I'm a resident here at Troutdale. Attending the first 3 hours and expecting to attend another 3 hours this evening. In reviewing a lot of the details, one, it's really clear because it's so detailed in the budget. It's really awesome to be able to identify all the changes and the expenditures that have changed between current year and next year. A couple of things that kind of stood out to me is, and I'm hoping that Eric's going to touch on this when he does like the transfers. There's a significant increase in transfers that are coming out of the water, wastewater, stormwater funds, and a few other interfund transfers. I know that interfund transfers are not something we really worry about from budgeting, but it is drawing from what the utility rates and stuff are paying into those operating funds or general fund, specialty funds, to others. So it just looks like a significant increase in those transfers out from where the revenues are collected for the utilities, with the 7% rate increase, noting that the 7% rate increase proposed in the budget is not included on the stormwater revenue and on the wastewater revenue that I mentioned the other night. The other thing that seems, I was curious about is there's a 26% increase in the legal fees for professional services. It's a $50,000 cost increase proposed in this budget, so curious what that 26% increase is for. Also, when kind of looking through the salaries and PERS and benefits, the increases seem to be beyond the percentages. In some cases, they feel like 25% in some of the pages, not consistently throughout, but PERS increase, I don't think it was as high as some of these calculated out to be. And I know that the PERS numbers change every 2 years. So there seems to be a few things that just need to be reviewed and looked at. Are the expenditures and personal services as tight as they can be for the calculations? Are they more based on the percentages? A couple of the salaries seem like the increases are going to be higher, and in some of the salary lines, there's like not enough increase. So it just looks like it needs to be a little bit more refined to help identify really if we still have that $1.4 million deficit when all things come down. But I'm curious about some of the increases and the calculations within personal services. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wishing to comment this evening? No? Okay, seeing none, at this time we will close the public comment period. Public comment period is closed. We move into departmental review.
Okay, so budget committee duties we talked about the other night, 2 of the 4 have been addressed. So we'll continue forward with the additional items. So first, community development department, made up of a couple different divisions and a separate fund. So code specialties is a separate fund, page 113 in your book. So ordinary wage and benefit increases, aggression, contact with Gresham on an IGA for inspection services. Revenue timing issues are difficult to predict, particularly given lead times with permits versus when inspections occur, as well as sort of the pre-application process can move from year to year pretty substantially. These are in your book as well, but you can see there's been plenty of volume of permits issued over the last several years. Estimates, we're going into the spring, summer building season, or however you might want to refer to that. So we expect that those colored bars to accelerate significantly in the current calendar year. New housing units. We had, of course, the big Foxford apartments there on Halsey that we added, and continuing to have multifamilies units being built. And just a snapshot of permit valuation that, of course, varies based on the volume and not unsurprisingly. So, questions on code specialties? And a couple of you have made note of the formula error that I had on the FTEs. There wasn't any change in the FTEs. I just didn't get my range of my formula expected, so it missed the bottom line on the numbers, but no change in the people. Tourism and Economic Development Division, page 107. This is a division within the general fund. Whereas code specialties is a standalone based on the state requirements that the permits fund the inspection activities. And tourism and economic development, again, page 107 is where it starts. Of course, to promote tourism, there's been a travel Oregon grant, actually a couple of them. One that's been concluded, another that's in process. Council will receive a month or two ago a report from Marley on a lot of the activities. They're also involved in the town center plan. There's development, coordination, and promotion contact. Carries the flag on the urban renewal RFQ solicitation. Involved in the city events and promotions. Of course, the visitor center. And as I mentioned, the conference at Troutdale. So ordinary wage and benefit increases, depot visitor center, expanded activities, and oh yes, there's the shuttle feasibility study that's and parking management study, both of which are near, not at the end, but in the final phases. So, questions on tourism and economic development division?
Mr. Wilcox.
Council makes contributions to finance. Is this the bucket whose contingency this comes out of?
Council makes contributions to what?
To a private event?
Usually, it's event and community oriented, that would generally be the case. If it was for something not community oriented, I'm not put it here. Okay, planning on page 100.
Mr. Barney, did you have a question?
I did have one question in the tourism section. So I was looking at the software licenses and I was wondering why this Placer.ai thing is so expensive.
How they decide on their pricing, I can't really tell you. It's a reasonably sophisticated package that the council got the results of the tracking that it does at that presentation a couple of months ago. It basically tracks the activity and presence of cell phones within the zone and is able to give us basically an attendance that's occurred at a lot of the First Friday events and that type of events.
If I could add, it's like the Nelson ratings for city events, is that if you have an event, it allows you to know what increase was in the number of people that came to downtown, so you can find out, was the event effective and did it impact, the city economy, and was it popular? So that's the primary reason we do that, is to make sure that events are being attended well, because if they're not, we shouldn't be doing them.
Thank you both.
Go ahead. Planning on page 100, several state mandates to implement that have been moving their way through the planning commission and coming to the council in the coming months. Ordinary wage and benefit increases. There's 2024 planning grant from Metro on the Halsey corridor, and we have great progress with grants from grant specialists. So that's page 100. Oops. Any questions in planning? Okay, public safety, community livability, page 70 is within what had historically, traditionally been the police department budget, operations piece. So it continues to remain there as customary approach for accounting. Some expenditures related for the code compliance officer, ordinary wage and benefit cost increases, and other changes are pretty minimal related to the code compliance activity. We'll circle back on the overall police contract and so forth later in the evening. So any questions on code compliance, code enforcement?
Mr. Bennett?
I would just like to see the, Ray, it's at the one police officer that handles minor things like traffic violations, etc. I'm still seeing as much traffic violations, especially lighted left-hand turns, 5 and 6 and 7 people going through. You could sit up there at that Jackson Shell on 257th and Stark and write dozens and dozens and dozens of tickets every single day. Are we writing tickets versus giving them warnings?
Gene, I could spend a long time talking about my frustrations and my conversations every month with the sheriff's office on this issue. We are getting more tickets issued, not nearly as many as I think we should be issuing, but they are doing that. They just did, like 2 weeks ago, they did a traffic mission downtown Troutdale, and they wrote a whole bunch of tickets because of speeding downtown, which was good. I have talked to them and asked them to come up with a plan for either 257th at the historic Columbia River Highway or 257th up at Stark, because those are the two most dangerous intersections for people not obeying the traffic light. We have had historically opposition in the city to red light cameras, which a lot of cities use for those kind of things. And so without that tool, we are left with law enforcement officers. And at 257th, let's just say Columbia River Highway, the problem we have there is it's such a busy intersection with so many cars. Where do you put the police cars to watch what's going on to do chases? I mean, you have to have somebody being able to observe that violate the light, and then they have to be able to get off of a curb to then chase after them. There is no curb on the bridge over the train tracks. There's no place for them to sit. Right now, they're at the county attorney's office trying to figure out if they can put a light duty sworn officer, I've suggested, on the bridge with a video camera and a radio, and have somebody around the corner waiting, and trying to experiment with that and see if we can use that at those two intersections and do that occasionally for people. You're not going to get any argument from me is that those two intersections need better enforcement.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the bridge, on the, just before you go over the railroad tracks, going northbound, there was a plot had some concrete barriers in there, but it seems like there's a big vacant spot. Is that no longer that way?
No, it is, but the problem with that, are you talking about the one on the west side, northwest side? Yeah, the problem with that is, one, it's privately owned, but two, the cutout on the curb is way down toward the Shell station. And so there's no easy way to get out and get into traffic quickly to chase somebody. I actually looked at that the other day, that exact same spot.
And it seems like perhaps we could get some kind of cooperation with Jackson's Shell where they could take one spot, an obscure spot.
Yeah, we could. I just have to figure out, the problem is with these, they have to plan it because you need two cars to do this. You know, really, one to observe, because the light is on the other side. If the officer's in position to chase them, they're not in position to see the light they ran. And that's why you have to have, if you can do it effectively, you have to have two different officers at the location. Anyway, we could talk later. I can tell you all that, but I absolutely understand your concerns, and I agree.
To me, it's never going to improve without the consequence.
Yep. Agreed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Mr. Wilcox?
Just want to briefly mention an issue with Stark on 257th is the south side of the street is pressure.
It's not ours.
So they're technically violating the Gresham side.
It's still a law.
And they run that.
It's still a speed limit the same. The speed limit's the same.
I'm talking about left on red.
About what?
Talking about people going left on red.
Oh, no, I understand that. I'm just saying, person running a red light is running a red light.
You know, if there's a jurisdiction issue
Yeah.
too.
We don't do traffic enforcement in Gresham.
Just as a point of clarification though, because Multnomah County Sheriff's officers do our service, and even under Oregon state law, the law enforcement officers can write tickets in any jurisdiction. And so even if they don't write it into the Troutdale Municipal Court, because there's a question about what line was over there, fine, send it to Multnomah County. The issue is the enforcement is more important than worrying about who gets the ticket.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Enforcement.
So yeah, that's a problem we can overcome, is that boundary line in the middle of Stark.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. White?
On page 108, under tourism, I see that the professional services is jumping by over $100,000. I was just curious what that was. It's towards the bottom of the page. I don't know if that's grant funded or.
If you turn to page 110, at the bottom of the page, you'll see professional services.
The one I'm looking at's on 108.
Yeah, the detail to 110.
Details on 110.
Oh, I got you.
Pointing to.
Okay.
It's going from 160 to 170.
Yeah,
It's the very bottom section on 110.
Because there's going to be a grant.
okay, it is a grant. Thanks, Eric.
Councilor Allen?
I just have a couple questions on page 73, under the public safety. Under special development expense, we have the cable sponsor, but the money's not in there, and I know that we had a cable, and we normally have a cable every year. But I don't see anything down for that.
Correct, we removed from the budget. If council makes a decision to fund it, then council makes a decision to fund it.
Okay, but in the year 24-25, there's nothing there, so it wouldn't go there even though you spent the money there?
24, 25 is a budget column, not a actual column, so it doesn't reflect what has been spent yet this year.
Okay, so if we chose to do a table next year, it would be a council decision at one of the meetings, correct?
Correct, those types of contributions are the, what Paul was getting at. This is an example of one that I wouldn't put over in tourism, so it's been here actually going back before my time. It's been this 0171 budget.
The other one is under operating costs. It says miscellaneous supplies, $1,000. What is that? What are those supplies? What does that mean?
What line are you on?
8213, operating supplies.
It's exactly what it's there as, this miscellaneous catch-all for whatever he might need to buy from a supply standpoint. So I don't have a specific widget.
Okay.
I mean, he operates the trailer, that's the radar trailers, you have 2 radar trailers, and sometimes they need parts. You know, he has to order just presumably ticket books for parking.
So since I'm new to this, I see the 24-25 budget, which it's got like a dash. And then I see in this whole book where there's all of a sudden money being spent on 25-26. So since I'm new to this, I'm really confused as to why there's no money that was spent before. And I know there has been, and then all of a sudden it's appearing. So that's what, I think that's my confusion on the budget, is I'm not quite.
I can't say on this one, but sometimes what happens is it was previously paid out of another budget, like under maybe development. We're looking at Erica, you know, or Heather might have been paid. Does any Heather or Erica have any better answer than I just gave?
Heather, please.
So Joe is our co-compliance officer, and he has random things he has to haul or clean up, and so that's kind of his catch-all. We didn't really have a place to put, like, he had to go buy ratchet straps to attach a mattress to his truck to clean it up, or he had to buy a specific color of graffiti so it matched what he was coloring over, or you know, there's graffiti cover-up and the spray can attachment that goes to the can, so he's not holding his finger down every time. So it's little stuff like that last year and didn't really have anywhere to go, so that was my way of budgeting for what he's wanting to spend or needing to spend on those pieces that you guys want him to go out and take care of.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then just one last thing on that page, is under the Community Resource Deputy MCSO, there's nothing. And do we not have one?
The current contract did not include the Community Resource Deputy for the first 10 years. The new contract will come into effect next budget year and won't be separated out. Whatever police service we get next year, it's gonna be whatever the package is.
Okay,
That was before, it was an additional thing we had like 4 years ago.
okay, thank you.
But we're electing not to add it.
There's two separate IGAs is what's listed there. The assumption is that there'll just be one IGA with all of the services. It's not necessarily that there won't be a community resource deputy, it's just that there won't be a separate contract like there is now. It'll be all in one contract.
Okay, and just a clarification, I know Ray and I talked, is the SROs at the high school are paid by Reynolds, correct? So we don't pay anything towards that?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Mueller.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Calling somebody else, all right. Executive department starts on page 43. It's got all these different divisions in it, so work our way through that. So there you go. This is just sort of a snapshot to give you a perspective on the various components of the cost. Legislative, which is the city council, it traditionally comes in first or comes in last, however you want to take it in terms of being the smallest expenditure category. So legislative, page 46, this is where we have the expenses associated with mayor and council support, stipends, memberships, training, travel. There's status quo, routine, ordinary. Any questions on legislative? Judicial, a couple more pages forward there is the court process, municipal court function, the municipal court judge, the appointed attorneys, our municipal court clerk, employee. No staffing count changes, ordinary wage, benefit cost increases. There was an increase in the court-appointed attorney rate, which had been static for a number of years and was problematic from getting attorneys be available to handle the court-appointed cases. So that's a minor change from year to year, but otherwise it's status quo routine operations. Okay. Legal, page 50. This is the city's legal department where the contracted city attorney is paid from, where our contracted prosecutor that handles all the court cases in the municipal court, where that's handled. The question or comment earlier about the professional services, 240 is the number that we budgeted for a number of years. Last year it was reduced to 190. We put in what we normally budget year to year, so that's why there's no particular other cause other than that. It varies significantly year to year depending on the activity. Election years tend to be more. Also depends on what lawsuits we end up with. We have a few other, things that drive it from a legal standpoint. It varies. I think 220 is the most recent high that I remember. So. Otherwise, no, there's no staffing changes. We have one very part-time retired, first retiree who is the administrative assistant in that function, but there's no changes in that. It's budgeted at halftime, but he doesn't ever work that much, so that's partly why the trailing years are less than what's budgeted, but it's available for that. Any questions on legal?
Mr. Barney?
One thing I was curious about is I was looking at page 50, and the second thing down is attorney, and there's no number listed there, and I was wondering about that.
The attorneys are outside contracted, they're not employees, and that section is only for city employees. That line is from back when we had an in-house employee as a city attorney.
Any other questions?
General government, page 52, and page a couple forward, there's no staff in this particular bucket. It's sort of as it just says, general government category. It tends to be where there might be special items that are handled that aren't going to be ongoing. It's, as I say on the screen, memberships for the citywide League of Oregon Cities, RDPO, Greater Portland, etc. Where this year we have money in the special department expense, and they're in the middle of page 53 for the fire study. So nothing particular note. Questions on general government?
Mr. Timmerman?
Professional services, the citywide energy efficiency study, it says if it's grant funded, is that a matching grant or is that not a matching grant?
Is that a what grant?
Matching.
Oh, that is a placeholder. There's been that item has been there for several years. There's not a definitive grant application that I'm aware of, so I don't know what the match or not match would be.
That help?
Other questions on general government? Okay. Administration, page 55. Expenditures for the city manager, city recorder, human resource functions, no changes in staffing, except of course, we're out doing a recruitment for a successor city manager. Minimal changes otherwise, again, status quo routine, ordinary operations. So questions on administration on page 55? Okay. Page 59, community services, otherwise known as recreation programs, special events, recreation classes, ordinary wage cost benefits, community events, food in the park, etc. That's the recreation classes, that's what's in this division. So any questions on the recreation program, community services budget? Okay. Well, that takes care of the executive department, finance department, yours truly and the team. Budget, audit, payroll, payables, receivables, utility billing, risk management. No staffing changes, retirements on the horizon. I had there last year because I knew there was somebody retiring. It's horizon is much closer than it was last year. We're in the final month of, I think she's the fourth longest serving city employee currently, tenure-wise, so Susan Huey, many of you may have met, who handles our utility billing. She's retiring, I forget exactly what the date is in May, but otherwise, ordinary benefit cost increases, increased audit costs, yeah, 87, 96, and so forth. So, questions on finance department on page 64? IT services, page 66. We have one employee, overtaxed employee, but does a great job. Provides the citywide help desk and a variety of application support. And seemingly always there's another application we're needing to implement, or cloud migration or something else that he's involved with. Ordinary wage and benefit cost increases. We've had a ongoing, I don't want to say slow moving, I want to say very deliberately moving cyber security network hardening project that's been going on for a few years. And it's one of those things with limited staffing, there's only so much we can do, but it's also, you have to be careful about it because you tighten things down too quickly or too much, all of a sudden you find that something doesn't work anymore, people can't get access to it, so it's been a deliberate project. There's also been an increased demand and work that he's been involved with related to the SCADA system for the utilities. So is it supervisory control and data acquisition, I think is what SCADA stands for, if I remember right. Anyway, but
It's really cool.
Controls and monitoring that's used for the pump stations and a whole variety of equipment related to the wells and the sewer treatment plant. It's been a Department of Homeland Security initiative going back a few years because there's been some vulnerabilities identified and some attacks, fortunately not in anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, but nevertheless they've been increasing the regulatory burden in that regard. So another area he's been working on. So anything, any questions on IT services, page 66? Okay.
Oh. Excuse me. I was just curious if our IT guy had any ability to look at our software contracts, the fees that we're having to pay, or seeing if there's better options or cheaper options. I don't know if that falls within his job description or not.
He's involved with a lot of the software contracts. Some of them are that, particularly the ones that are more citywide, whether it's for Adobe Acrobat licenses or Microsoft 365 licenses, or certainly any of the server operating system packages. He's involved in quite a few of the department-specific ones, but not all of them. It sort of varies a little bit. In many cases, the particular or line of business application that's specific, many times there isn't a competitor product. We moved a few years ago from getting it from a reseller to having a corporate account long term, I forget what it is, for our Adobe licenses, which helps save us some money on that. But it's certainly, cost is always one of the items that he touches base with me on related to software renewals. So, unfortunately, there's not a lot of alternatives to licensing for Microsoft 365. That's one of those monopoly things.
Did you have your hand up, Mr. Barney? No? Okay. Mr. Mint?
Speaking of that, is there, like Oregon, state of Oregon has a purchasing program that's applicable to all the cities and entities. Is that right, Ray?
there's state contracts on a whole variety of products, which we make use of for a lot of different things. I don't think we have bought a pickup truck in the last 20 years.
Oh, no,
That we haven't
I'm
bought through the state contracts process.
But can a similar type thing happen with all of this software licensing stuff? Where you have one person negotiating on behalf of all the municipalities?
There are some purchasing cooperatives for software related to public entities that we already make use of. But, so in some cases, it's a wider multi-state coalition is the wrong word, I don't think it's the right word, but of which Oregon has joined as a participating state, which then gives us access to it.
Because just seeing how much.
We already make use of those when they're available.
Yeah, just seeing how much this city alone would be a small city, imagine what Portland and Salem and Eugene and Bend are paying. So that's why I was thinking it's just gotta be a huge sum of money.
Gates is struggling a little bit, so cutting some stuff.
Pardon?
Okay, other questions on IT?
Counselor Allen?
I just have a question. It says here cloud storage and protection is more than doubled. I am not a computer person, I hate them as much, anybody else can tell you who knows about that. I don't understand that it just more than doubled, but can you explain that for me so I can understand?
It's unlikely that I understand it at a sufficient level of detail to be able to make everyone understand or anyone understand. Part of it is in that network security hardening project, we're migrating more and more stuff into a secure cloud environment, which requires a different type of backup and storage capabilities. And part of the best practices on the cybersecurity and for our insurance renewal for our cyber policies, part of the expectation is that there's essentially three backups, two cloud-based and one not offline is the wrong term, I don't remember what it is, but and so part of that is trying to implement those appropriately so that we are able to continue to get our cybersecurity insurance coverage. Getting more technical than that,
Well, that clarifies some things. I just wasn't sure as to why it doubled, so.
well, we're migrating and the hope is that some of the costs will fall off as we get the migration, but it isn't one of those things that we can generally.
Right.
And so, and I also doubt that what we're able to abandon, that cost savings is going to be equal to the increased costs. It's probably going to be less than the increased costs, so it's going to go up, but until it gets sorted out. Other IT questions? Okay. So public safety, this same chart, and the earlier one was related to the executive division or the department and the various pieces. We touched on finance there in the middle of 5% and so forth, but as you see, police operations and fire protection services are the largest by far. So that's sort of the stark reality, as it were. The fire costs, the police costs stacked against the property taxes, and unfortunately there's a gap. So more than 100% of our property taxes are required for those two items. And, it's unlikely to be the actual final police costs. So general fund revenue, property taxes, that just sort of illustrates that that is the largest source, but even with that, it won't cover the public safety costs. So the fire contract, we touched on this on Monday night, current IGA expires this year, potential one-year extension, already working with the other city managers and with the Gresham city manager, they had some ongoing developing the outline of what will be the basis to put that extension together that will ultimately come to the council. But at the moment, the tentative number for us next year is that 3.2 million, which is a 15.6% or $435,000 increase for that one line item. So that just sort of illustrates the progression. It's going up year by year is not surprising, but it takes a meaningful jump up. 10 years ago, it took a meaningful jump up when it transitioned from the old 10-year contract to the first year of the new 10-year contract, but not that significant of a jump up. So fire contract is on page 80. I don't, it's basically a one-line budget in the budget book, so there isn't a lot of detail there to look at, but if there's something that you
Eric, I just want to put some side note here. Both contracts expire this July 1st, so we had to do with both. We've learned that both from the providers of fire and police, they believe they've been a long time undervaluing the services they provide to us. We don't have much in the way of leverage with them, at least for next year, in time to do something different. So this budget year, we are spending approximately $6.8 million for fire and police services. Back in September, the offers from those two providers totaled up to $12 million from $6.8 million. We are bringing it down, but I just want you to know that is the depth of the huge increase in budget that was expected from those. And we're hoping to be down to the point where it's going to be closer to 8 to 8.5 million when we're done, as opposed to the 12 that they wanted versus the 6.8 that we're spending. So we have worked really hard. A lot of people in this room have worked really hard to get us to where we're at now. So understand, we didn't choose it, we didn't want it, but if you want a fire truck to come when you're sick or a fire starts, we gotta pay what we gotta pay.
And I'll just add to that and say you do the best you can, but at some point, the people that are providing the service just say, no. They're no longer gonna do it, and there is no, they have to provide it no matter what we do. They can just pack up their hoses and trucks and go someplace else. So, I mean, we have to balance that too. Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah, that thing with the fire people. If I'm not mistaken, it was last year or the year before that the city of Gresham passed a ballot measure to fund fire, police, EMT, all that stuff. How can they have a substantial, huge budget shortfall when they just got funded? Did they grossly underestimate their needs and put it out to the citizens saying, well, we need this kind of ballot measure, this much money? How can they be that far off? Or how much are they actually taking the surrounding cities that do the services for granted and pressing them?
We could talk about this for a while, but we'll just talk about it for a couple of minutes, okay, just to give it some context. What you have is, we pay less than the citizens of Gresham do, okay? That's a fact.
Even after,
before, during, however you want to slice the cake, we pay less than they do. But we also don't have the same ownership that the citizens of Gresham do. That's our pushback to them is, wait a second, we don't own stations, trucks, hoses, things of that nature. But they pay substantially more than we do.
do they have
Already.
do they have the same rating? We're a 3?
Okay.
No, we don't have a 3, but here's the basic issue. They have gone back to their citizens over the last 10, 12 years and added a $180 a year utility charge for public safety fee, and they've added $1.35 per thousand local option levy that all their citizens are paying because of the increased costs in fire. Troutdale, Wood Village, and Fairview citizens haven't increased their contributions at all. And so Gresham is saying, hey, our citizens have bellied up to the bar and are paying a lot more. Gresham expects Troutdale Wood Village and Fairview to belly up to the bar and pay also. And that's why this next budget year is the transition year to figure out what the long-term solution is. But that's their logic is that our citizens are paying a lot more, so your citizens have to pay a lot more.
Is this current increase of 15%, 15.6%, and that's what matches the numbers I've got. Is that for each year, or is it adjusted every year? And for how long is the contract,
All right,
proposed contract?
this is news hot off the presses since we just got another offer from Gresham yesterday, but we're almost done. All 4 cities have agreed we're gonna do a 1-year extension. Councils have to approve this, of course, and increase it, not the full amount that they really wanted, but because all 3 cities have not had the years like Gresham has to increase their income from their citizens. We are only having a 1-year extension at that 3.2 number that's in your budget. And all the cities will be meeting over the next 6 months to pursue what the future options are for fire. We have talked a lot with Fire District 1 as a possibility. They seem like a great fire agency, so there's a lot of news to come, Gene.
Well, that clarifies it better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was unaware of that.
Mr. Allen?
So that's an interesting development, yeah, because before it was, we need to pay the same amount that they do, but we don't get any of the assets or the capital built up. And now they're offering an option for a year. Okay.
That's
Is that pretty
still
much
their position, but we're kind of getting a loss leader. We're getting the child deal here.
For 1 year.
Ordering on the kids menu. Okay.
Right. We don't get the capital, we don't get the.
Right.
But remember,
the equipment, and we don't get the same service.
they have the right to ask for whatever they want. And I could
They
spend
do.
a long time explaining to you how they got there, and I understand their position, I don't agree with it. But until we have another option, you pay it.
Right.
We're doing the best we can, but I can assure you of this, okay? If you think the increase is bad, if we didn't have this, your lack of fire coverage on your homeowner's policy would rock your world. It would go up way more than this ever thought of costing you. And I also don't know that our citizens would think too highly of us if there was no fire coverage. Okay.
More to come on fire.
Oh. Mr. Wilcox.
Wanted to make a comment on the deal with Gresham. Number one, their ballot measure, their utility fee, that's not just fire, that's police, fire, and parks. I've got a copy of their ballot measure in front of me. They're saying the $15 a month utility fee covers 9% of those costs for those 3 entities. The same applies to $135 per thousand. So the point I'm making is that's parks, police, and fire. It's not just fire.
Right, we figure about 60 cents of that $1.35 is actually going to the fire department. But it's all into the general fund as cash, it's all fungible, so, but the equivalency is, all is right. It's not fully just for fire, but it's because of the increased costs, all for all of it.
Are you talking about the $15 a month?
No, this is,
$15 a month utility charge.
that's in addition to the $1.35 Gresham residents pay per thousand for local option levy, on top of their permanent rate. So essentially, Gresham's citizens are paying about a $5 per thousand tax rate, plus the public safety fee on the utility bill.
All right.
So Bruce, don't move to Gresham, you'll really be unhappy.
Doesn't go to.
Okay.
All right. Police operations, page 72. This is the other part. We touched briefly on the code compliance components that were part of this, but this is the contract that they mentioned that's coming up. This also has The DOEC costs in it, which we continue to pay as well. So the law enforcement IGA, the potential cost, what we budgeted, because we had to put something in the budget before we went to the printer, and we weren't getting timely communication to be able to do anything else. We put in a 20% increase, which is what is in the numbers that you have in the book you've got. The sheriff's most recent offer, they've come back with a 41% increase. And then also I've got about a $50,000 increase in for the BOEC costs. And that's just sort of an illustration of where we have been and where it heads to. The gap between the yellow or the orange dotted line there and the bars has essentially been the savings that we've benefited from during the contract period. But now if you take and calculate it out, what the new costs would be, would exceed what our 3% growth would have been getting out to 2025, 26 budget year. And that's the 7.2 million in cost savings that occurred over the past 10 years. So questions, comments on the police budget on page 72.
Mr. Bent?
Is that the 56 up there? You had, earlier you had 58, 57, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Is that specifically for the police IGA, or are you incorporating the BOEC and other things?
The big bar earlier on was the entire department, which has all the expenses, which would be that far right bar there on the screen.
And is that
This number is, what's in that previous bar is only 4.7, 4.8 is the contract with the IGA, or with the sheriff's office. So that's just that one line item out of that whole budget.
But that's one of the two IGAs. The fire and then this. So the actual IGA specifically for the police is 4785?
That's what's in the budget, that's not what they're willing to provide it for currently.
And the most current offer is 5636?
Just for that one line item.
Yeah, I don't want to confuse it with the other ones. I want to keep it, the IGA within the IGA itself.
And
not
just to be
distorting it.
clear, what we have in the budget's $4,785,000. Their latest offer is $5,636,000, and that also does not include the resource officer.
I thought it did include the resource.
Everything in the budget in that department right now, if you look at page 72, is 5.8 million.
Right.
That's all of the other costs.
That's their most recent.
Within that number is the 4.7.
Right, for them to get down to the 5.6, their offer, they cut out that position. All right, if you want a lower number, you can't have the community resource deputy.
So they took it out. So actually they're charging even more because they're adding another 247,000.
Gene, I'd love to sit down with you sometime and I'll show you their numbers and how they get there. And I will just tell you, the only editorial here tonight, it is very expensive in the county to employ people. Their cost per head above salary is higher than I've seen anywhere. It's just expensive. The county just is a very expensive place.
So what is that 5636? What does that equate percentage-wise over the IGA that's ending June 30th? Just the IGA.
41% higher.
41%.
41%. So our lease payment to the county for this building is $220, it should go up 41%.
Doesn't work that way.
Love to do it.
Sorry, sir, but you should know that.
I did 25 years
I know,
in
and
corporate
so
procurement.
I challenge you on that. You should know that.
No,
Those two things do not connect.
I think they do.
Okay,
I think they do. Like I said, I did 25 years in corporate procurement. I did tens of millions of dollars in contracts. I did triple net leases across the western United States. So I do have some background that I think is weighted. Now, what these people are trying to do, maybe a different story, but I'm not talking off the top of my head.
I didn't say you were.
Right, but I'm saying, what I'm saying is they are related.
But Gene, if you want to tell us or do some research yourself and let me know what you think per square foot this thing is worth in the market today, great, I'd love to hear your input on that. But what we can charge in the market per square foot for this is completely unrelated to what they have to pay for their salaries. And I don't necessarily agree with what they pay, but that's what they pay.
Well, that may be what they pay. Tell me this, where in the Multnomah County can they get this building right now? Where can they get this building right now?
We're using that analysis right now in evaluating.
It doesn't exist.
It's a special use.
We are working on that, but I will tell you this. If you want it to go up 41%, that would be a decrease from what I'm recommending, okay? I'm recommending more than 49%,
41.
41.
Why?
We can talk offline,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, go on.
Okay.
Yeah, because like I said, if you want to help us out, would give us an idea of what you think it's worth, great.
I'm not talking about the worth of the building to sell the building. I'm talking about the worth
The
of
lease rate, what the lease rate in the market
So are
should
we.
be. Yeah.
is what they need to offset. I mean, what do they don't have, as you said, Ray, to me earlier, we had leverage when we first started this. We had the 28 police officers and we had this building. Well, the most important of the two was the building, and we still have that building.
But you're saying that you're recommending higher than 41% rent increase.
Yeah.
Right?
But I guess what I'm saying is, and we could go on with this, you don't have the ability, in my opinion, to up the rent in excess of $1 million a year to cover the cost of the increase in service.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, I'm just going reciprocal to reciprocal. This is a reciprocal, it's like a reciprocal tariff.
It's not a
It's
tariff.
not dollar for dollar.
It is reciprocal. You raise our rates 41%, we're raising your rates 40%. We have expenses and costs and deterioration and have to plan for the future,
We
to
have
build
to
a new police
justify,
building.
whatever number we give them, Gene, it has to be justified by the market conditions. We can't just pick a number without some support behind it in terms of what the market charges per square for a comparable building. You know, you've seen appraisals and you know they have
Yeah.
comparables.
Yeah,
So we need
replacement
more
cost.
comparables, there's not many.
Yeah.
Tanny has found some, we're working on it now.
Well, add on the fact, Tammy, even add on the fact of going to a triple net lease, where they're paying a portion of the taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance.
Trust me,
There's no taxes, it's
Okay.
public property.
yeah,
Well, no, I understand it, I'm saying, but triple net is those
yeah,
three.
I understand.
Okay, other questions on
Mr.
page
White.
72?
So, I'm concerned that the sheriff pulled our resource officer, because I think that was one of the better moves we made during this contract, was to get our own dedicated to Troutdale only officer. Are we gonna wait and negotiate that in the contract, or should we go ahead and budget for that expense now?
I would say, and you can answer too, I would say this would be a budget committee council decision whether they want to invest in that or not. And that doesn't have to be done now, but it should be discussed before we approve the budget.
Okay, fair enough.
And the problem is, we're so enmeshed in the negotiation right now, it's hard to, it's all a package, we're negotiating on a package. We're not doing a Christmas tree add-on like we did 4 years ago, because we had an existing contract we added on to, now we're doing a brand new contract, and so it's no longer an add-on, it's all part of the package total.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
The proposed public safety services fee, we touched on this on Monday night. Just a recap of it. There you go. lease that was just being talked about, the cost associated with operating the building as landlord, et cetera, is on page 75. That's the public safety building operations. Is where we have the utilities and insurance and the maintenance and so forth. The current contract, CSO pays, reimburses, they don't pay it directly, we bill them, they reimburse us 72.5% of the utilities. Of course, ongoing increased costs, the building's 14 years old, new lease rate, TBD, to be determined, it was just talked about. So any questions on page 75?
Seeing none.
Okay, transfers, page 112. I think the local budget law also refers to it as non-departmental expense, some term such as that, but page 112, that's where the transfers between funds are and where the loan back and forth to the Urban Renewal Agency, which is a separate entity, not part of the budget book, is. It's also where we capture the whole contingency and unappropriated on that page because we have to have it somewhere. The difference, the change in this year is, as we talked about Monday night, and again, we're discontinuing the 175 transfer of the revenue from the lease to subsidize the GO bond, the debt service amount, 230,000, it was 80,000 in the prior year. That now incorporates the additional $150,000 a year that we're paying on the $1.5 million loan that the city made to the Urban Renewal Agency as part of the money for the matching funds of the grant. Fortunately, this coming budget, the one that we're dealing with for next year, it's the final year of the $80,000 payment, which was related to the remodeling, the loan that was used for the remodeling of the Depot Visitor Center. So a year from now, that number will drop to 150, thankfully, but for this coming year, it's 230. And then the ongoing transfer for the full faith and credit obligation debt service fund for the Oregon Business Development Brownfields Redevelopment Fund loan. That's the 205. The change in the transfers, it's all those various different components. So questions on page 112?
Mr. Bent?
I'm, no problems other than, I want to see the 175,000 reinstated to the GO bond yet. That story, when that first happened, I was involved in all of that stuff and listening to the city manager at that time, the mayor and city councilors assured us and assured me independently all the lease money is going to go towards reducing the IGA or the GO bond each year. Oh, yep, promise. And it may have, and I'm sure, like you say, Ray, it was probably a bill of goods. But it's
Like
still.
the sheriff back in 2015 promising he could provide sheriff services for half of what it really cost.
Exactly.
But that promise went by the wayside.
Well, I understand, but I'm a person of principle, and the people expected it. And I talked to numerous people about, we just authorized them to build this brand new beautiful building. Now we're getting rid of our police services and leasing it out and doing this IGA. They were not happy, but I told them, well, all this money from the lease payments from Multnomah County is going to pay a substantial sum of money towards that IGA. And after 20 years, when this GO bond is paid off, and it's a 50-year building, we'll have 30 more years of lease payments with no with no debt payment that can help easily fund the general fund. And they all bought into it. And I bought into it. I think it's a good deal. In the end, I think it's really a good deal. But to change that and take that away from them just doesn't set well with me at all. I mean, just not at all.
The budget is the proposed budget. What the local budget law requires is management to put together a fiscally realistic proposed budget. It's not required to put together a happy budget. I don't expect many of the things that we propose to try and close the $4 million gap to be happy or to be well received.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, circumstances are different than they are today.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with the circumstances that we have today.
And Eric,
It's what's proposed, it isn't necessarily what's going to happen. So
and I don't have,
council will have to make that decision.
I don't even have a problem with the $15 utility surcharge, whatever, that raises a 1.405 million. I'm okay with that. I can live with that. I just want this back where it always has been, and what I've told a whole bunch of people, and what I was told, and a whole bunch of people with no integrity. Nobody here, but a whole bunch of people that used to be here that had no integrity and irresponsible and selling the people a bill of goods, from the sheriff, who I thought was a lousy sheriff then, city manager that I didn't have much respect for, and the one we have now is wonderful.
Okay, so
All right,
any other
all right.
questions on
Thank you.
budget transfer page?
Thank you.
You'll pay that.
I'll pay you after the meeting, yes.
Okay.
Counselor Allen.
I just want to back up, Gene, that was one of the things that came out in my notes, was I don't understand why it was changed when we were doing it all this time, and
Because it's a $175,000 expense.
I understand that, but we also promised the citizens that we would be paying down the building, and for us to go back on our word, I think is just not responsible, and it was not standing up to our word to our citizens.
You're
And
certainly
that is a
entitled to
concern that I
that.
have.
We're simply proposing what is, we believe, the fiscally responsible approach. Doesn't mean that we're gonna be agreed with. Other questions or
take
comments
that.
on page 112?
I got it. Mr. Allen?
Oh, this is right up your alley. The general obligation bond rate that we paid back then versus if we had to do it today, isn't it more expensive today?
Well, we'll get to GO bonds here in just a few slides, and when
You answer me
we get
then.
to that, and then if I don't answer that question, ask me then if it doesn't get at what you're looking at.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, general obligation
I'll
bond.
say one thing.
Hey, Reitman.
This $175,000 promise was made after the police department was disbanded over my strenuous objection, and we went with the sheriff. And we were saving money. If you looked at that, remember that chart with all the bars that had the dotted line above it, we were saving money. We were getting less police services. We've gotten less police services ever since we got rid of our department. But we were saving money, and this promise was made on the basis that we were going to be saving money every year, and I voted for it. So this is a really tough one for me. But I voted for the $175,000 offset. By the way, it doesn't pay off the bond earlier. It just pays off, it just reduces what each citizen pays by a small amount. I guess it's like $30 a year, $40 a year, something like that. But that's real, I mean, that's money. Anyway, this year, as you could see, the bar went up way above the line. We're no longer saving money with the sheriff's department. We are no longer saving money. They aren't willing to subsidize us. It's gonna cost us a lot more to have police services. I favor looking into starting back our own police department and getting back to reality, because the sheriff hasn't been reality. We've gotten less service, but they contend under their math that they've been subsidizing us. So they don't want to do that anymore. And so we're no longer saving money. So that is a justification for reneging on a promise. The promise was based on the fact we were going to save money. You know, I haven't finally decided what I want to do, but I'm in the position of having voted for the 175,000 offset, but that was the justification for it, and it no longer exists. And it's a cost that the city needs to start shaving costs here and there and trying to make up for all the expenses down the road. So anyway, it's tough.
That was well stated, by the way.
See here.
I don't know what else to say. I'm thinking about it.
Thank you.
The general obligation bond is what it's related to, which is the next couple of slides here. We can certainly circle back to the topic. So, GO bonds, as we were talking about for this building. Page, what did I say in the previous, it's almost the last, page 265, excuse me. Debt service rate from property tax levies, $550,000 for the coming year. It's 6 years remaining, discontinue the 175. That's the chart where I was thinking they'd get at some of your question, committee member Allen, I say Councilor Allen, but I would be confusing myself doing that. Also related to the 175, the first year was 150, so over the course of the 10 years, we have transferred $1,725,000 from the general fund to reduce the property tax levy for the little stacked white bar is what's related to the police facility bonds. And I believe this year it is, if I calculated it right, I think it's 27 cents per thousand is what the debt service cost is for the 550,000 debt service there for the coming year. So, committee member Allen, did I get to your question?
I was actually wondering if I were to take out a GO bond today for a similar amount of money, would my rate be higher? Would it cost me more to borrow that money?
Oh, yes, the municipal rates are certainly higher than they were back then. I don't have a benchmark kind of calculation for that, but yeah.
That's good enough. Thanks.
Mr. Wilcox?
All right, if we want to calculate our new bond payment on the property tax bill, would we use the 27.5 figure times our assessed value?
The cents per thousand?
Or is that entire bond?
Yeah, the dark one at the bottom is what's known as the permanent rate. So on your property tax statement, it's just listed, the county, City of Troutdale, that's what the 3.75 amount would be. Then there's another line that is for general obligation bond on your property tax statement, and that's what would be driven by that 0.275. So times whatever your assessed value is. I mean, that's per thousand, not per dollar.
So if I want to know what my payment would be without this 175,000, I think my assessed value times 275.
Yeah, that's the incremental additional for the whole bond. That's not the 175, because 175 has never paid the annual amount. I mean, the annual amount is 550,000 this year. I think it was 536 or something last year. So it's never offset the entire bond by any means. It's always just been a subsidy portion.
What I'm getting at is, where is, in that bar graph, is the 175,000
indicated anywhere. It's not listed in there anywhere. The differential, I mean, the second to the right bar, that's the current year. That has the $175,000 subsidy in it. So as you can see, the white bar is smaller. Now, of course, the property values change year to year, or the debt payment changes a little bit year to year, but that's the relative difference.
Yeah, if you look it up there.
Bars, that answers my question.
Yeah.
Approximately, yeah, that's, you know.
It says 236, 268, then it drops down to 204, because we're buying down the rate with that 175.
Okay. The full faith and credit is the other debt. The schedule again is also in the very back. This is the $1.5 million loan from the Oregon Brownfields Redevelopment Fund that the city borrowed and then turned around and loaned to the Urban Renewal Agency for the remainder of the cleanup that was necessary out on the site. The city continues to make those payments because the Urban Renewal Agency doesn't have an income source to do so. So that's part of what was on that page 112, the $203,000 in debt service costs that the city is paying. Page 266 has got the detail. To the extent that it matters, and there's 6 years remaining on that one as well. So that's the different departments. So, Mr. Chair, stop.
Questions?
Traditionally, what we do is take a break and then come back into the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee meeting, go through a couple of follow-up items, and then traditionally what's happened is there generally hasn't been questions, and we've been in a position to go ahead and approve the Urban Renewal Agency budget, wrap that up, and get that out of the way tonight. That's of course entirely up to the committee, so.
Councilor Leahy?
I have a question. So in the budget right now, there's not a number for this facility, right? It's TBD.
There is a number for this facility,
So what?
but it may change.
Right.
Yeah. It's the best number we have today.
That is, okay. We're gonna say, do we have a fictitious number to work with?
Not yet. Okay, Mr. Wilcox?
I have a question going back to Monday's meeting, actually, the Public Works Departments. I didn't hear anything this year about the federal land they have over by the sewer plant. What's going on with that? Maybe Travis could help with that. That's usually covered in the budget.
Here he comes.
I will borrow this one. Thank you, Victoria.
Thanks.
Testing. Hello.
You're good.
Okay. So what Paul's referring to is there is a small parcel immediately west of the wastewater treatment plant property. We acquired that from the General Services Administration through their property donation program several years ago. We subsequently discovered latent deposits of contamination on the property, waste material, hazardous waste material. And without going into too much detail, we have back and forth with the GSA, and we are now at the point where we are relinquishing that property back to them, and that's all being handled by our legal department.
Thank you, Travis. Okay, at this time, we will go into recess, and we will come back at 7:40. You guys need 7:45. Okay, we'll come back at, would you say 5 or 0? 40. Okay, we will come back in at 7:40 for the Urban Renewal Agency.
I think this is working just fine. It must be the operator.
Thank you.
It's kind of ironic that the three counselors that voted to keep our laser right here. No one else is.
Not enough. Here's the thing, the city of Gresham has not justified, beyond the fact that they say their people are paying more for their city service, but they haven't justified the 60% or any huge increase. That would tell me that there's a good reason why. Sure, there's inflation there, but not, you can't be that bad. And the justification has not been that. They keep saying, well, our people are paying more and we do this. Well,
It's just like staffs and
Public safety fee.
like they didn't know this was coming.
yeah.
Well, if we did that, I believe
Last year was 72 million, this year it's 80 million. There should have been enough money.
well, I would, of course, I would. But there are
To
people
learn,
like,
yeah, we're gonna have to live with that. We're fifth highest and to them, it's not a roof. That's their excuse.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the city of Gresham, they haven't justified this to my satisfaction.
Well,
Why
so they're being political. Their residents are upset that they have to pay them $15 a month to everything else.
when?
So they want to be the big hero and stick to the three cities, because they don't think we have another option. That's why I kept saying, oh, we have a fund league, otherwise we have 90 different in home.
And the other thing too is this business
I'm okay with
spending $175,000 a month to pay off building.
not a majority.
That was something I voted on because I was in the budget committee when they voted on it.
It's well worth it for the
It was a promise to the citizens and the tax rate was reduced. And I don't care how bad the budget gets. You make a promise to somebody, you keep that promise.
Oh, well, yeah.
And that's just the way I see it.
On their side.
Yeah.
That they're trying to free up. Putting it on our back.
But putting it on property tax.
That would help the voters. You better. What's your question, Chris? Sorry, that's all right. We only got 5 more minutes of break. What do you got?
So this is calling. Well, the thing is, I know this is done with an Excel spreadsheet, so it's all around it. So it's numbers and all that, but this principal call, these numbers up here actually add up to $2 more than supervision.
Okay, it's just like the state, just let it go. That's not even worth bringing up. Because there's always typos, but the auditor won't catch those. Yeah, if it's within $2, that's good. It's because they're allowed to round up. They don't always turn well, not if you're doing multiple calls. Oh, we are? I mean, you can ask us if you want, but I think it's no. You can ask anything you want. And we're actually ahead of schedule.
I don't see, down the road, and we should have counted as long as we're saving money, let's do it. I don't think it was one of those terms that we went through. No time limit. I can understand how you. Well, I don't think overall flow, and we're short. But it's something. Just like all three cities got together last Wednesday. That's not answering your question. What it is we are all faced with this. The amount we're paying, and the fire and the police are justifying that. That's not
But my question is, we don't have any facilities for like our license, the city of Bergen does. They own the fire station.
They have us over a barrel.
Well, here's the thing, I mean, I would start talking with the health I know you call them
Fire districts around.
Yeah, go ahead.
Multnomah County has agreed that starting July 1st, they could provide us. They have to sign it. That would be more expensive.
However, if you have to look down the road in this sort of thing, so. And what I'm urging you to do is, particularly on this 175, to go with it, I think that's. The citizens can say, okay, I know it's complicated.
Well, I voters to agree.
Yeah.
I know you want to go to a fire district.
Well,
It's gonna have to.
okay, if we go to a fire district, and it's a long-term thing.
Well, it would be forever, until we go out, we were in one.
Well, see,
I don't wanna lose, I don't wanna stick to my guns on 175 and lose that. I want that's the way.
I don't want to get another one of these 5-year things.
We've been with the 30 years, 20 years, and happy relationship for 20 years. Let's continue our progress. We're glad to serve you. But they kept it within that we could afford. But for additional time, 20 years they were happy to for 30 years they said, we gotta give it a chance to our citizens are paying more. Of course, the citizens own the department. They control all the costs. We don't have any say. We don't say what level of service or when they buy it. So it's, we have tried reaching out to some of the others I was surprised.
Jesse. How you doing? Yeah, for sure. Let's just try and get as far as we can tonight. Yeah, much preferred. Much preferred. It's busy. They're making some changes, trying to restructure, strategy and support and stuff. So my day-to-day hasn't changed a whole lot. It's, honestly, I've been using like AI stuff to like help flesh out like stuff that reports and stuff that I have to send. I'll do a quick check, some tweaks, and like it just saves me a bunch of time. Otherwise, I'd just be spending all my time on like useless shit. Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah, gotta love the language learning models for sure. But, yeah, between this, that, I signed up for a certification through work, like education stuff, for business management and STEM through Cornell. So that was a mistake because now I'm just like all my idiot spare time is like also like submitting project coursework stuff. I'm just like, oh, I forgot. I don't know, I got some time coming off in May. I'm gonna go to New York for a long weekend and then spend the week like doing shit at home, just relaxing a little bit, just to have that to look forward to. Yeah, so I just bought tickets yesterday, so that's final now. Go. No, just me, just popping over. So it'll be cool. I mean, my wife's very pregnant. To just go over for a weekend and deal with all that. Of course, now she's stuck at home with 3 year-olds. So. Yeah. It'll be cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll take paternity, try and build that FMLA as long as I can. June. Yeah. I hope everything's kind of even keeled that way. If not, then it's no layoffs or anything like that, but they're just like moving like silos departments around a little bit, and so there's more of a focus on and stuff like that. So it's just stuff they do every like couple of years. I feel like to try something different if something's not working. Yeah, we try it out. Yeah. Well, thank you. We'll definitely, we'll see, because as long as there are certain things in place, it's not going to change a whole lot, no matter how hard they fought to upset the people at the bottom.
Okay. All right. At this time, we would like to call to order the Budget Committee meeting for the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Troutdale for Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. Can we have roll call, please?
Chair Rinda.
Here.
Director Andrews.
Here.
Director Allen. Here. Director Lund.
Present.
Director White.
Here.
Director Davidson. Here. Director Lindy.
Here.
Annie Stephenson.
Here.
Gene Bennett.
Here.
Chris Farnum.
Here.
Victoria Rizzo.
Here.
Lee Allen.
Here.
Heidi Timberman. Here. Paul Cox.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. I just want to say, I think we had some really good discussion, but please just raise your hand, and I promise you I will call on you. Okay? so we don't get too much going on at once. But I just want to be clear, all of your questions are going to get answered, and everybody's going to get a chance to say everything that they need to say before we adopt the budget, right? With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Mueller.
All right, thank you, Chair Stephenson. So follow-up from the last meeting. Ray was enthusiastic about you being aware of the improvements out there, and Travis wisely pointed out that there are a few safety rules that we need to be concerned about, and so I just wanted to momentarily touch on that. So if you're going to go out there, you're going to need to check in with the job shack. You're also going to need safety vest and a hard hat, and we don't want you out there wandering around on your own for your sake and safety and for liability issues. And because of that, Travis wanted to protect you, so here's some eye candy, so you don't have to tromp around out there in your boots and your hard hat. And that's a shot of looking toward the railroad trestle there. There's a shot of those pylons or posts that Ray was making mention of, starting to go underneath the railroad trestle for the walkway to sit on. That's sort of going up the hill. You can see sort of way in the background, that's the depot, the back of the depot, way up there at the top of the hill. A little closer down, right down underneath the trestle, where the walkway is going to be elevated, again, as Ray had mentioned, so that we comply with all the floodplain requirements. And then that's a shot looking, I was going to say to the south, but it's actually to the north. And then there's the work that they've already been underway on the outlook or the out viewpoint or whatever it's referred to, and you can see there's the I-84 bridge in the background, and then there's just further shot toward the bridge. So anyway, that was my brief recap and concern for your safety. So now you don't have to tromp around out there. You can wait until it's the park is ready to be dedicated. So anyway, review of the proposed budget. Again, we have only two funds are involved in the Urban Renewal Agency, the Debt Service Fund and the Riverfront Development Fund. Same numbers that we reviewed on Monday night in terms of the composition, the requirements for the proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. So any budget committee questions or discussions on the Urban Renewal Agency proposed budget?
Seeing none.
Well, with that, Mr. Chair, I would move toward motions. So we need a couple of motions for adoption, approval of the Urban Renewal Agency budget. So staff.
Sorry, do we need to do public comment for this meeting?
We don't have to, we get it on Monday night, but if you'd like to, I certainly don't object to it.
Anyone wishing to speak? I guess I'll open it briefly, just in case someone wishes to speak on this budget. I'll open the public comment period for the budget for the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Troutdale. Any citizen may speak to any item relative to the Urban Renewal Agency budget. Anyone online, please unmute yourself. Okay, anyone in chambers? Okay, with that, we will close the public comment period. And I'll say,
Absolutely.
okay.
Get that rolled again here. Okay, so staff would request a so moved motion that the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Troutdale Budget Committee approve a levy for the Troutdale Riverfront Renewal Plan area for the 25-26 fiscal year in the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing the taxes under Section 1C, Article 9 of the Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 457, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All All right.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Leamy, seconded by Councilor Andrews, that the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Troutdale Budget Committee approve a levy for the Troutdale Riverfront Renewal Plan area for 2025, 2026 fiscal year, and the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing the taxes under Section 1C, Article 9 of the Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 457. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none? Oh, Councilor One?
No, I'm ready to go.
Okay, all right. With no discussion, Kenny, could you call the roll, please?
Andy Stephenson.
Yes.
Chair Whitmer.
Yes.
Gene Venn.
Yes.
Director Andrews.
Yes.
Heidi Timmerman.
Yes.
Director Allen.
Yes.
Chris Barney.
Yes.
Director One.
Yes.
Paul Wilcox.
Yes.
Director White.
Yes.
Victoria Rizzo.
Yes.
Director Davidson. Rich Allen.
Yes.
Director Leahy.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. The bank account thanks you. Good night.
Mr. Chair, staff requests a so moved motion that the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Troutdale Budget Committee approve the proposed budget for the 25-26 fiscal year in total as submitted.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Andrews, second by Councilor Allen, that the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Troutdale Budget Committee approve the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025, 2026 fiscal year in total as submitted. Any discussion on the motion? All right, call the roll, please.
Chair Whitmer.
Yes.
Gene Venn.
Yes.
Director Andrews.
Yes.
Heidi Timmerman.
Yes.
Director Allen.
Yes.
Chris Barney.
Yes.
Director One.
Yes.
Paul Wilcox. Director White.
Yes.
Victoria Rizzo.
Yes.
Director Davidson.
Yes.
Rich Allen.
Yes.
Director Leahy.
Yes.
Andy Stephenson.
Yes. Okay, that carries, and that budget is passed. Unanimous vote. Let's see, we can do that, okay?
So, Mr. Chair, on behalf of the Executive Director and myself, we'd like to thank the members of the committee for their efforts and time and attention on the Urban Renewal Agency budget and their involvement in supporting the development of the Urban Renewal Plan area. So with that, any closing comments?
Good times ahead. All right, that will entertain a. Okay,
Second.
we have a motion by Director Ripma and seconded by Chris Barney to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you. And now we will reconvene the Budget Committee meeting for the City of Troutdale. 7:53.
Okay, we launch into the bottom half of the second page of the agenda there. Get this, there we go. General fund forecast. So we previewed some of this on Monday night. This is the particulars as it currently is. It shows that ending fund balance of 7.2 million. This is without the additional 850,472 of the police contract most recent proposal. So that deficit would be $850,000 greater or worse, or however you want to put it. Because again, we had to go to the printer before we got that from the sheriff's office. So the assumptions in the forecast, showed you the charts on Monday night, which we'll get to in a moment, but the current PERS contribution rate, 22%. It increases every state biennium. The PERS is a creature of the state legislature, so we're sort of have to follow along with their methodology, but Every 2 years, the employer rate changes, and our rate is going to 22% as of July 1. Estimated again in the assumptions to 26, and then at 28 in the next two bienniums, just based on all of the work from Milliman, the actuary that PERS employs. Assumptions is that it's wage growth of 5%. Assumptions, again, healthcare expense at 5% per year. Materials and services, I've got at 3%, which, may be optimistic given that the tariff impact is currently unknown. And I don't really have a good handle on what the composition is of our total purchases that might be tied to some sort of import. So, of course, the Gresham Fire contract, their proposal, of which we've got the number in there for the first year, they had a 5-year set of numbers. That's what's plugged in. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what will happen, but I can't have the fire service go to 0 in a year. So I've got that plugged in based on what they're representing. I've got the police service contract at the lower number growing at 5% a year. Capital outlay is assumed at a flat $500,000 a year. That's just, there has to be a number because we spend something in capital every year, but that can vary. And it assumes the discontinued bond subsidy. Property taxes are assumed to grow at 3% a year. All other revenues, I've only got plugged in at growing at 1% a year. We've got the public safety services fee at $15 a month that we've looked at both tonight and the other night, is plugged in there. And the enterprise zone, I don't have any tax revenue plugged in. Both Amazon and the cubes came off last year and the year before, so they're already in the numbers. And the next one, if you remember last year, we talked about the BESS, the battery energy storage system, the Troutdale grid that was built out there. That project came online in December. So this fiscal year that we're going into is the first year of their enterprise zone property tax exemption. So they won't go, quote, onto the tax rolls in terms of getting revenue until 2028. I don't have a good number even to estimate for 2028 yet because I don't know what the assessor is going to put the improvements value onto the tax roll, which categories they're going to put it in, and what they refer to as change property ratio. I can come up with $1.3 million in revenue. I can get at like $373,000 in revenue, depending on the assumptions. And so I'm gonna have to wait until November. We'll get my first sense of how the assessor is gonna choose to categorize I believe it was $355 million of improvements that they reported on their exemption. But how those are categorized will impact what kind of value we get. But regardless, it's out there, 4 years from now at the very earliest, is it gonna be of any benefit to us? So with this is the same one as I showed you on Monday night. This assumes, and this is what the budget, as it was printed, assumes, the $1.4 million public safety fee, avoiding the $175,000 expense of the bond subsidy, and the MCSO IGA at $4.8 million, which is, again, the $850 below their most recent offer. So, oops. Back, sorry about that. So, if all of that, everything else stayed the same, and we ended up with the most recent offer from the sheriff's office, that number could be, that 7.2 million would be, 6.4? Do my math right? So, propose to support the budget or the goals, allocates to undertake the objectives. We still have significant expenditures associated with the Urban Renewal Agency. Allocates to try and maintain essential services, invest in infrastructure, and city goals. So with that, I have got all of my prepared materials has been shown, Mr. Chair, so I am open to discussion and questions and how you'd like to proceed.
At this time, are there any additional questions for staff? Councilor White.
Yeah, I have a kind of a point of order question on the public safety service fee. You know, that hasn't been decided yet, and I don't think our public's had a chance to chime in, like at a council meeting. So I'm just surprised to see that as part of a budget here tonight.
Again, it's what staff is proposing. Staff doesn't get to decide. Staff is just proposing it. It's subject to council approval, just like the proposed utility rate increases are subject to council approval. It's just what we're responsible for proposing as a way to address the fiscal condition. What ultimately gets decided is up to the policymakers.
Yeah, let me add a little bit to that.
Minus the public.
Yeah, just to add to that is that Eric obviously is correct, that staff is making a recommendation, because if we did not recommend a public safety fee, there would then be a $1.4 million hole in your budget. And that would either have to come from eating up our quote-unquote savings account, or we would have to, that's pretty much the Parks Department goes bye-bye. So that's why staff suggested it. It's what most every city in the metro area or the state of Oregon does, that and or a fire district. So it's a common tool that cities use in the state to cover the ever-increasing cost of fire and police. So that's why we suggested it.
And parks, right? Part of that's gonna go to parks as well.
It goes to general fund, fungible. It just goes in the general fund.
Because I remember about 10 years ago, the city tried to pass a $15 park fee, and it didn't pass. And we've survived the last 10 years without it for parks. I think the focus should be on police and fire. We have a pretty healthy parks budget. We added $50,000 for private security, and it's mainly being used to patrol parks. So I feel like, I think we're getting spread thin. I think we should really focus on police and fire and get through that hurdle first. So that's why I think it'd be much better if we heard from the public and had a council meeting on the subject. It's a brand new fee.
Yeah, well, first of all, the citizens got public notice of these two nights' meetings, and that information was in the information if they want to review it. Second of all, it will have to come before council. Right now, we're scheduling it in May for the council to vote on it. And then a third time the citizens will have a chance to weigh in is in June, when the council considers the budget itself finally. So we are giving several opportunities for people to speak to it, and it will be a specific agenda item in May.
Actually, it's going to come to the council 3 times. Because it's based on an ordinance, which there'll be a first reading and a second reading, and then there's a third resolution that sets the rate that the ordinance establishes. So it's on your upcoming council agenda 3 times.
Mayor Ritter?
Well, yeah, it's not gonna be popular, but this fee, in my mind, is for police and fire. I realize, as Ray threw out, that it's fungible, it's money, it's going into the general fund, that's used for other things. But the reason I would vote for a public safety fee like that would be police and fire. Our police and fire costs have gone out of sight, and that's the justification for it. And I think any suggestion that it would be used for anything else would be a mistake. So I don't, in my mind, it's a public safety fee, and it's needed. I was talking to people at the break that thought it might need to even be higher than that, than $15. And I encourage any thoughts on that to come out, but $15 is certainly what other cities okay, and it's gonna be a new thing for Troutdale. It's something the city council can do without having to go to the voters for approval. But that doesn't make it right. You know, it doesn't make it a good idea. I do wanna hear from voters, but so far, I haven't heard anything except maybe a suggestion that why not make it a little higher? That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Bent?
Can't that money be designated specifically to fire and police IGAs? Just like the 3% gas tax is designated towards streets, and only streets.
I think not just like the gas tax, which is quite different.
Well,
I think
I'm using
it could
that
be-
as an example.
It could be announced by the council that we want this money used for police and fire. It does go in the general fund.
You can kind of do that, but it's all going into the general fund. So it's all kind of in the same pot.
Well, I understand that, but if the public in questions, when we get questioned and whatnot, can we tell them, yes, it's going in the general fund, but it'll be used specifically for the police and fire IGAs?
You certainly.
That and a lot more.
You can certainly say that because the police and fire costs are multiples larger than what this is going to generate. And also the ordinance as it's drafted specifically addresses that it is a public safety fee. It is not a general fund, general revenue, let's spend it on postage and office supplies and lawnmower fee. It's a public safety fee. And it's at this point 1.4 million, and either one of the IGAs is multiple times of that cost.
Oh, I understand that.
So that's how it's going to be crafted and that's going to be in the Troutdale Municipal Code.
Yeah, I think that the people will deal with it much better, don't you?
I do, and I will, if my words are worth their weight in gold, my words will be that it will be used for police and fire. For sure.
Okay. As we get into this, I just want to say a couple of things. I don't think we're done spending money yet, let alone making any other adjustments to the budget. So I think it's probably going to get bigger here before it gets smaller as we go through the night. And I said this earlier, and at the end of the day, everybody's going to hold us accountable for the work that we do. Services we provide and what it costs to provide them. And we're in a really interesting spot. You might not think so, but in my opinion, we are. We're in an interesting spot, and we're trying to get from point A to point B, and it's not a one-year thing. This could be a several-year thing. Yes?
Could you just tell us what the current, at this moment in time, what is the current lease proposal that you believe exists right now on the table?
What exists right now is what we have plus 3%. That's what we have at the moment.
220 plus 3%.
That's what we have right now. I strongly believe that however this works out, it won't be that number when it's all said and done.
Yeah, it'll be higher.
But I can't tell you what the number will be. Wish I could, but I can't.
Right, I mean, it's just an important number.
Yeah. I feel much more confident that the police number is gonna be 5 million than 4 million, frankly. If you're asking me to, verify a number. And I think anybody that's on that committee would probably agree with that statement. Where we're at right now. Okay, so I want to go through a few things. First off, I'd like to call on Heidi Timmerman.
So I have a statement here I'd like to read. Troutdale City Council and Budget Committee, thank you for your work and service to Troutdale and its citizens. We are at times a challenging lot. Nevertheless, you've been charged with the role in the governance over the city of Troutdale and its citizens to ensure livability and safety through the provision of police, fire, water, sewer, streets, and park services to all who live, work, and play here, not only now, but far into the future. All of this is to be done in a fiscally and ethically responsible manner. I expect you to filter your deliberations of this budget through that lens. Your city manager and finance director have proposed a budget reflecting the values and vision for the city of Troutdale. It is understood and expected that a finite amount of funding with infinite spending options will require making decisions that will simultaneously satisfy some and disappoint others. This simply cannot be helped. It is helpful to remember that this proposed budget was prepared with input from city staff and the most up-to-date information and data available at the time of printing. It is now your turn to review, deliberate on, and approve a fiscally sound budget for fiscal year 2025-2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allen,
Are we into summary now?
we are in deliberations.
Okay. So I just wanted to state that I favor a conservative budget this year, primarily because of the headwinds that are against us, such as we don't have control on our fire costs, we don't have control on our police costs. We don't have our own city hall at this time. And, you know, these are very concerning to me to be in this position. With that said, I do favor some things that are in this budget. One of those things would be the Beaver Creek Bridge. It's a 5-to-3 match, not match exactly, but 5-to-3 is basically the way the ratio works out. And that's an opportunity to take advantage of. I also would like to see, when we talk about covered parking for city equipment, I see that more as a savings as far as protecting our equipment, especially if you have some kind of cover on the windward side or the wind side. And I see that employees, for continuity of business, to be able to learn the job before we run into retirements is highly important. And so those kind of things I do support, but I would like to see come out of this committee a conservative approach, realizing that we've got some significant problems that can come ahead, and we're going to need to, we may need to be ready to rise to the occasion on some of these things. It's going to cost. And as you heard from our public comment, people are concerned about costs right now. Lots of bills and lots of things are going up, but not everybody's wages are going up, so they're feeling the pinch. One other thing I'm concerned about is we do have the urban renewal, and that may take some upfront cash to make it happen before it's a game. That's it.
Okay. All right, anyone else? Mr. Benton?
Yeah, I would just like to make a motion to reinstate the $175,000 back into reducing the GO debt rather than subsidizing the IGAs for fire and police services.
Okay. So that would be reducing basically the tax burden by 175 and increasing the deficit in the budget by 175.
Yeah, put it back into the transfer to what it originally always has been.
Question?
Yeah, I think committee member Beck can appreciate this. So the reason why I was asking about the rates of general obligation bonds is with all these things that are in front of us, I don't know what we're going to have to borrow if we do have to borrow. And borrowing at today's rates are higher than they were when we did this police facility. So taking money out of the general fund when we're in this situation to pay down the general obligation that the citizens have to pay. And if that forces us into borrowing an equal amount of money or more, and that's gonna be at a higher rate, then that's an overall loss. And so, and I'm not exactly sure what we're gonna be seeing here this next year.
So you're saying if we had to take out a loan to subsidize the general fund,
Right,
to backfill the fund,
yeah.
that it would be like a
We're gonna-
payday loan or Guido or something of that nature?
Well, no, we'd have to do a bond, but we're gonna have to do a larger bond than we would have if we had the money in our general fund. And that's gonna cost more. And we may wish we had that money.
Okay. Was it a follow-up to your original question? Okay.
I'm following up on Gene's motion, if I may.
Yes.
There hasn't been a second, but I had let's just say I've heard from several people about the promise of $175,000 being made. I don't think we should vote on eliminating that yet in isolation from other things. For instance, could the public safety levy be increased slightly? I don't know what it would take to cover the cost to the general fund of $175,000. I heard Gene say it sounded favorable to the idea of a public safety levy. I don't know about an increased one, but I definitely heard from, I can quote Bruce Wasson, who I don't think is still here, but he told me at the break, which just blew me away, that was a promise, but in the long run, if we end up having to go to a fire district and taxes go up, but it helps rebuild the police department, I'm throwing all this stuff together, he would be favorable. That's what he said at the break. It just blew me away because it's so I didn't think he would feel that way. But I think all these things need to be kind of balanced. So could we put Gene's proposed motion out as one of the things we vote on at some point and discuss other things? Would that be okay? I mean,
Well,
just to
the
clarify.
motion hasn't been seconded.
I realize that.
But if he wishes to, he can withdraw the motion.
I'm not asking him to withdraw,
Yeah,
I'm just asking that we consider it in conjunction with other changes we're proposing, or we might be proposing.
Because I think if we give him an opportunity to remake the motion, should he need to later on in the meeting.
Of course.
that'd be okay, right?
I'm in favor, I've already stated, I'm in favor of the $15 a month. That's 1.405.
Yeah, something like that.
You're withdrawing that motion?
No, I'm not withdrawing it, I'm just saying I'm supporting that part of it. So you got the differential, and we still don't know what it is, that's why I've been trying to get as close as I could, because there's still tens of thousands of dollars out on the boards, and the 1.405 may be enough to cover it alone, right?
I don't know.
It's possible.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Don't you agree?
it's possible.
It's possible.
I mean, I don't.
I'm just saying for the principles and from principle standpoint and from what we were told years ago, and I am a person of integrity and principle that we need to be able to live with what we've told all these people all these years on all this deal, regardless of it's new people, new times. They still look at it as the city management, the city council, the city. You're still the same entity. They're still gonna look at you even though it's not you then.
So for clarity, you've got a motion on the floor that you wish to leave on the floor?
I do.
Okay. Is there a second for the motion on the floor, which would be to put the 175 back into the general fund?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move the $175,000 from the debt service fund back into the general fund.
Is there going to be an opportunity to make other adjustments that could provide the,
Yes.
cover the 175,000?
There could be, but I've got a motion and I have to.
No, I realize
I gotta deal
that,
with
but it seems premature to me. I would urge us to
Yeah.
hold that motion and it's gonna make a difference how I vote. If we could make it up someplace
Point of order,
else.
can we suspend the motion that's been seconded until later in the evening?
Table it.
The point to be would be, you would withdraw the motion. You don't suspend the motion, you withdraw the motion and make the motion at a later time. And she withdraws her second. Okay?
May I ask the mayor, how do you feel about that?
Well, all right, my
Would you be
feeling,
agreeing?
if you're asking me, I would like to see if we can make up 175,000 someplace else, I'll support the motion. If we can, but I don't know if we can. It's too soon, so I would rather wait and you remake the motion a little later. How about that? Let's discuss.
I'll agree with
I
that.
don't know if there's anything else. I would support the motion.
I'll withdraw,
Maybe we can make it up.
at this time, I will withdraw that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, you withdraw the second.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay,
Thank you.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you. You had a question?
I think the issue for me is that if we look at seeing how we can replace that would be great. I just am a person who wants to be loyal and wants to be responsible. At the same time, try to figure out the promise that, and I know that we keep saying that promise, but it was made. People do remember that. And so I just want to do due diligence and try to figure out how we can put that back in there or how we can solve that issue. It's really important to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got something specific to say, but I want to preface it by, I've tried to communicate, I know I did the chair earlier today, that staff is looking next year as a transitional budget. We have been given a huge burden of much higher fire and police that we just learned this budget year. And so we are trying to create a budget that gets us through next budget year without too much damage to our ending fund balance, savings account, whatever you want to call it. Because that is a good security to have in the city. And that's why we've suggested a budget that has these two additional forms of saving some money or adding money to the general fund. But either way you look at it, in or out the 175, it's still going to be less than our total income. So we're still going to have to take a little bit of that ending fund balance. And understand that, in my conversations with the council members individually, there's been no meetings on this, or there's no commitments to do anything. But if we're at the 3 city meetings or listened to it last week when we talked about this issue, it's pretty understood among all 3 cities out here that we have to find a different way of providing fire and police services. Either it's a fire district to provide fire services and we get out of the general fund, or either it's a local option levy that helps supplement our general fund. And in combination with all that is getting back the Troutdale Police Department. But you can't pay for the high cost of fire and police services and bring back the Troutdale Police Department without having more income. Just the math won't work. Like I said, and I don't want this to ever happen to the city unless you want to cut the Parks Department. I mean, that's not really acceptable, especially when we have a brand new $5 million park coming into town. But understand that what we're dealing with is not a long-term solution or a long-term problem. What we need to give the citizens a chance next May is one thing that we've talked a lot about. Wood Village is already in that planning stage because Wood Village can't even pass a public safety fee by the council. Everything has to go through their city. So they're being hit really hard next year with that new fire fee. It's going up for them about 40% for their fire. Ours is about 15%. So we know we have to ask the citizens, do you want to provide a different way to provide these funding? So whatever we're talking about, I think needs to be kept in context of next budget year, knowing that we're trying to come up with a solution for the long term so we don't have to do this every single year and be killed by 1,000 cuts. Oh crud, this year we have to cut this parks employee, and this year we have to cut this person this year so we can keep paying for these services. It's going to destroy Troutdale in 5 years. We can't do that. And now to get back to the point I was going to make is Eric and I have talked about this earlier, and as I mentioned on Monday night, I doubt, and I'm looking at Travis, he may throw something at me because it's not like the way we like to do things, but projects are always spread across several years. I will doubt we will spend the full $850,000 next year for the Beaver Creek Canyon Bridge. So I might throw out there that we reduce that $850,000 by $175,000, but just know it's gonna at least show up in next year's budget because we're gonna have to finish the project. At least we show a commitment in our budget that we're doing the project for the grant providers that we're still working with, the state and Metro. So that would be my suggestion, is if you make that motion that the staff would not scream and yell if you said, let's reduce the Beaver Creek Canyon Bridge budget by $175,000. If that makes that go down easier, that's just a suggestion.
Thank you.
John,
Councilor Lehman?
There's two numbers on the top of my head I'm thinking that we could cut. One was the Imagination Station discussion on Monday was cutting that 50,000 because it would do next to nothing on Imagination Station. And another number I was thinking is we have in for our gray replacement budget 226,000. The top salary we're offering is 210. So we could cut 16 there, so that'd be 66,000. We could put towards the 175.
I didn't follow that last one.
I had that marked in my budget too already.
I didn't follow the last one. I didn't.
So we had, when we talked about salary range for raise, we put it 170 to 210.
Yes.
In the budget, we have 226. So we could cut 16 there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then 50 off the parks, that'd be 66 of our 175 right there.
I got a question on the bridge. I also was thinking in terms of, we have 550,000 coming from grants or some of that is covered. 550,000 was covered by grants or something with the bridge. And then there was 300,000 from the city. Would we, if we reduced, per your previous suggestion, we reduced our 300,000 by 175, would we still get the grants? Could we still start on the bridge and spend the 550?
Yeah, I believe we can. I mean, Travis, you have a comment to make on it? Sorry. That was working a minute ago.
You have a magic touch, right?
He's broken.
No, I fixed it.
There we go. Hello. Actually, yeah, in thinking about this, that's actually a great idea. It is impossible for us to spend the entire amount in the next fiscal year. The reason being the in-water work permitting requirements will limit elements of that work to a certain period during the summer of 2026. So that period will come after June 30th, just shortly after it, but after June 30th. So you're really not putting the project at risk by reducing that down some, because there will be a significant piece that cannot be done during next fiscal year because of the in-water work limitations.
Thank you, Travis. Anyone else?
I have a question, what number are we shooting for?
What number are we shooting for?
To reduce,
175.
Well,
Well,
we're
I
shooting
mean,
for
the big picture
175,
for
but a
this-
couple of things
for this
we already
budget.
talked about. We have to add in, I think we need to add in 850 for police.
right,
And another thing I'll say that's not very popular is we've talked about restarting the Troutdale Police Department. And that work on a very small conceptual level would need to be started now in order to do it. And there isn't any resources in there to cover that. However small it is, there isn't anything. So I think that's something that does need to be considered as well. And then if there's any other work that needs to be done which I don't know as far as our next steps on fire service. We don't have anything in there for that either.
So what numbers should we be looking at for those?
That's above my pay grade.
Couple things I will say is that we, on terms of fire service, we, this budget year, have already paid for 2 fire studies. One is by Triton, which did our feasibility studies, and the work on that actually identified Fire District 1 as a possibility. And with Tiberian, who did all the economic study for us, determining the public safety fee, what a fire district would impact our residents. And so right now on fire, we're pretty full up with fire studies. I'm not sure that we're gonna need much next year for studies. On, the mayor and I have already talked about the need to start planning at least opening steps, timelines, how we create a new Troutdale Police Department. We've talked about who we might wanna hire as a consultant to do that. We have in the budget, I think right now, $20-some thousand for fire studies, but I don't think we're gonna need that. So we could always move that 20,000 over and make it for Troutdale Police Exploratory, to give us something. That's just my musings about those topics.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Okay. That sounds good. Then the other thing I think should be considered is there isn't anything in the budget as far as, and I know I'm just spending money here, but I'm just saying, okay? I know it's not typically me, so just hang on with me here. Another thing is we haven't done anything for any polling or research for a fire district. You typically don't go out and ask people to vote for something when you haven't done your homework first. And I think we should kind of have an idea of what the expectation or what the results might be before we spend the money to put a ballot measure together to go out for a fire district.
How much?
Probably 2. What do you say?
Well, I don't know. Wood Village has already retained Praxis, who we worked with before last year. I'm just thinking off the top of my head for another number in the budget. We've got $240,000 for legal. We reduced it to 190 this year. I don't think we'll reach 190 this year. We could move the 240 down to 190 like we have this year, and then move that 50 over to another fire study for, yeah, or just whatever for marketing, I mean, for research, fire service research. But it's like, however you figure it out, that, you know, there we can find there's $70,000 that we can appropriate in the budget for police and fire needs next year of preparing. I guess we could put them together into one line item, so we're flexible. We don't have to know what each is gonna cost and say, reduce the attorney's fees ones from 240 to 190, take the 20,000 we have for 4 cities fire study, and we could just have a line item. Eric, imagine one, that $70,000 is to police and fire future studies, something general like that. So we have at least a line item, we know what's being put in there.
I know that might
That's
be
very thinking out loud as usual.
That might be a little light unless the grade school is doing.
But you know, we have this
study for you.
contingency too.
Yeah, we do have contingency. Mr. Allen?
I like it in the sense that goes along with my thought that we really actually need to be ready for the oh poop moment, that things didn't go the way we hoped they would or planned that they would. Because in the end, we still have to supply service to our people.
Correct.
Not just safety, but also our public works, right? We gotta make sure that the various public services stay on and they have protection and they have fire. And that may cost, and it may not go the way we want it to, and so we have to be ready for full poop in our budget.
Well, and, I mean, this, to me, for Troutdale, or at least in my time doing this, is kind of an uncharted area. I don't know that we've been in this position before. not with this many uncertain things going on at the same time, and also new poobah, coming in. And that's a big change too. But, so I mean, those are some things that I think definitely need to be considered in this. And I guess I would say this, I don't know what the number is, but I think at this time, we have to look at this and say, what do we want to do? What do we need to do? And what can we actually afford to do right now? And I think that's across all of it. And some of this is reality also too, some of this is optics. We're asking people for, the same people for more money. I mean, at the end of the day, and this is not good or bad, it's just a fact, we're basically increasing tax and fees $2.5 million from last year to this year. Okay, all told. Very close to that. And, things are gonna continue to go up from here. And we have to be prepared for that. Is a fire district gonna help us a lot in the general fund? Absolutely. The fire district, by my fuzzy Mickey Mouse math calculations, anticipate that it would bring in $6 million to the general fund. And right now we have $7.9 million coming into the general fund. So it increases the general fund by like 77% from what it is today.
But that timetable, we're not looking past like another 3 years for that to actually happen between the trial phase and the additional year that we have tacked on.
And that's where I'm at, is how do we get from point A to point B?
If we're prepared, we have options, right?
Well, prepared is better.
Yeah.
The other thing, is, and this was just my name for it, I called them, there's a few of these, and we'll have one coming up with Batteries Plus. But you look, and I call these general fund boosters. 2021, we had $596,000 in COVID money. 21-22, we had $1.7 million in COVID money. 22-23, we had $1.7 million in COVID money. Last year, the Amazon and I think it was Cubes, right? Or CNS, sorry. Taxes changed, that gave us another $780,000. I guess what I'm saying is I call those boosters, because those are things that are kind of getting dumped in that kind of help us. We don't have that right now. So it's a little more nitty gritty down to it, what do we do with what we have? Yes.
I will just add, we in some ways have prepared for this transition and this burden because our ending fund balance in the last 6 or 7 years has gone from 4 million to 8 million. Part of that is because the council was very disciplined and didn't spend the ARPA money like some other jurisdictions. We just put it in the general fund and didn't do anything special to buy with it. So all those things have added to our ending fund balance is now over $8 million, which gives us a little cushion to be able to handle this transition next year. And that's a good thing. So we at least have that flexibility. Not every city has that flexibility, or at least that cushion to help them adjust to the difference.
Okay. But with that said, we are planning on bringing in 17 million, we are planning on spending 21. Right?
Well, you got contingency not allocated in there too.
Just the contingency.
My math was, planning on spending 18.7. Previously, bringing 17.4. So 1.4 reduction in the balance is what I calculated for that.
Yeah, if you didn't spend any contingency, yes, and you didn't increase any spending. Okay. Okay.
So it sounds like we have
We do.
All right, what I've heard, if I may sum up, is
Sure.
that we're reducing the Beaver Creek Bridge to 675 from the 800,000. The extra 175,000 that we're not spending on that will go to retaining the 175,000 offset for the building. The police and fire future studies, we are budgeting 70,000, and this would be a new item, I guess, by reducing legal by 50,000, and the other 20, I can't remember, where was the other 20?
That was from the Four Cities Fire Study budget that we had
Yeah,
just
that was
left in there.
from the Four Cities fire study budget, and altogether, that package sounds good to me. I don't know if you can make a motion that
We also had
that complicated, but anyway, that is the essence of it, that
We also heard that, I think someone mentioned $50,000 just eliminating that line item for imagination station.
well, that was
surface.
gonna be an extra 50, and we wouldn't have to find the money from the bridge.
Yeah, or,
I
yeah,
don't
however.
know- I don't know, the merits or demerits of it. It sounded like we don't need it for the bridge, and we could leave the 50,000. I wasn't proposing the 50,000.
I thought the 50 was already in there. for
Yeah.
imagination.
It is to help with, okay.
Yeah, 50 was already in there for imagination.
Right,
And
and you were suggesting we could not do that and take it out, and that would help fund the 175 we were looking for, but we don't need it now.
But we could still take it out.
We could still take it out, and there's,
And then we still- and then we-
I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
then we have
I
16,000.
heard somebody had said that it wouldn't do much good.
Right.
Travis,
And then we have
what do you?
16 for the city manager.
Yeah.
And we need a budget for new microphones.
No, I figured out what it is. It's taking a moment to pair every time I turn it on. So I'm gonna leave. There we go. Yeah, I mean, really, whatever you want to do with the money is up to all of you. The 50,000 kind of doesn't do anything for us. We can't really do anything to help that situation with 50,000. As Jonah spoke about the other night, without more full funding to replace that surfacing, we will just continue to patch it as best we can with our existing staff and the existing materials that we have on hand. So we wouldn't have to go out of pocket for anything next year, in other words, it would just kind of keep going the way it's been going for another year.
Okay.
Sounds good. So I take it that that patching would be a reasonable quality just to keep us out of liability. That's all I care about. Get us by.
I can't guarantee it's going to keep us out of liability.
Right.
It's what we can do without a lot more money.
Okay. I can understand that, but I sense that the patching would at least be, it's not like.
You can see examples of it out there right now. We've been patching it for years.
Right.
And it is not great. It's better than nothing.
All right.
Councilor Allen?
So Travis, just clarity, where is the money coming from now when you're patching?
We have a stockpile of material that was given to us by the installer, or I think actually by the supplier, because the installer went out of business and basically left us in the lurch.
Okay, so then I guess the question is when you're patching and you've got some of that rubber out there, it gets moved because of all the commotion throughout the day?
She's talking about the pads.
Yeah, the
And you
mats
have
are sort of an interim until we can do the permanent patch.
Okay,
Yeah.
but then is there any way to put the rubber where it's not moving? Because then when you move it, with all the traffic that happens, you leave that gap, because then when I'm there, I'm pulling it back on. Because
We
it
can
does
look
get,
into that. From a budgetary perspective, I would go back to $50,000 is not gonna help us with that problem or with the overall problem of the surfacing. It's gonna need to be a lot more to really solve that problem. In the meantime, we will continue to patch, we will continue to, the mats are really when the problem first comes out, that's our like quick solution to try to get something over it until we get somebody out there with the permanent patching material to fix it. And yes, Joe and I will look at if there's some things we can do to keep those staying in place better. Frankly, it's really difficult because you have a bunch of little kids running around and they like to mess with things.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Counselor Andrews?
Oh yeah, Travis, while we got you up here, quick question on the Sam Cox roof gutter drain replacement. Is it a structural or safety issue currently, or is projected to be over the next year or so?
It's out of an issue, just speak up.
Well, I guess to answer that question, I believe that we could wait a year to do that, but in doing so, we open the door to increased water damage, increased structural damage. Now, there hasn't been like a specific acute rot issue identified, but my facilities maintenance tech has spent in the last 8 months has spent a few days crawling around in the crawl spaces up there, and we do see water penetration. The building does need to be re-roofed at a certain point, and the longer that we wait, the more likely it is that we're looking at replacing trusses and things like that. So, and costs go up year after year.
I was gonna say, yeah, I looked at that already, and I understand it's not coming out of the general fund. We have a separate fund for that that's funded by rental fees and such from the Sam Cox building, so.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the revenue from that was only 15,000 projected, is that correct? For Sam Cox building? I think
55,000.
55? Okay.
I thought it was high for a roof.
No, for the revenue that the Sam Cox building
I'm sorry.
makes, yeah. But yeah, I guess that's what I was kind of looking at for that balance, so appreciate you clearing that up, thank you.
Okay. Counselor White?
Yeah, I think we're kind of missing the bigger picture, though. We're kind of picking at a much bigger problem the way I see it, because, we all know that property tax is, I think, the 5th highest in the nation in Oregon. And everyone complains about 5 and 50, but it would take a statewide vote to change that. And I don't think that's ever gonna happen. And it's more than 3% a year, because it compounds each year. And a year goes by fast for me, I don't know about you. Property taxes is probably my biggest bill in my household. And the idea is looks like we might get 1 year with Gresham. But after that, the plan, I think, is to try to join into a district. And the costs I've seen are anywhere from 3% to 3.5% to be part of a district. And what that'll do is it'll free up all that general fund money that we're currently spending for fire. And but what it does to the consumer is we pay Troutdale 3.75 currently, and if we add another 3% to that, it's a big hit for the consumer who's already faced, the 18% inflation, fees and license increases. We have a new levy fee that's going to be on your utility bill. Water, sewer, and storm are going up 7%, and they've been going up pretty steadily. Waste management goes up every year. We've been hiring more consultants and subcontractors than ever. We've added a gas tax, which actually I think is helping us. Energy costs went up with PG and Northwest Natural Gas. Does anybody have the exact amount it went up? I think it was close to 50%.
Yeah, it was several percentages, one of them being 18%, right? And then there's another hike after that.
And our wages a lot of us are on fixed income. We're kind of a blue collar community out here. I think the average income in Troutdale is around 76,000, and that's with 2 people working. come up with that figure. We have large percentage of our population is mortgage burdened, and an even larger percentage of that is rent burden. We have to have special meetings on that because we're in that category. So what I'd like to see happen is we try to cut whatever we can out of this budget. I haven't voted on the last 4 budgets. They passed by like 1 vote. It's been a real split, tight margin. And you can't say we didn't see this coming. We knew we were gonna get hit with an increase, especially if we didn't have another option on the table, something to, leverage with. And so I think it's gonna be really hard. And if we tell people they're gonna have to increase their property tax by 3 to 3.5%, I think they're gonna fire all of us. They're not gonna be happy with it at all. So what I want to see happen is that we can't control salaries or wages, but we can control how many employees we have. And we can also limit, get back to basics, which, the number 1 role of government is, police, fire, infrastructure, and parks, I would say, are our top priorities. But we have a lot of other categories and things where it's hard to say no to you guys. You're very persuasive. Just like the Beaver Creek Bridge, I think the original estimate was, somewhere around $200,000. And every year we wait, it costs more. I'd kind of just like to be done with that bridge, if at all possible, before it goes up any more. But we really need to look at some major cuts to raise replacements and some money to work with to look at creating our own police. And we can't just keep looking to the people that live here. And I was a little upset just that there wasn't a single cut mentioned by our staff. It's all, how much more can we pay on our side? So that's all. I think we should all really look at this as being like the tightest budget we've done in a long time.
Ray, you had your hand up next.
It's important to remember that we're not gonna force any citizen to pay a dime more in property taxes that they don't vote for themselves. They will get to choose.
What are we gonna do if they don't vote for it, right?
Then we can cut, big time, like you're suggesting. But that's the decision the citizens will make. If you give them the option, I'm a big fan of giving people options. And if you say, if you want to vote for higher property taxes, great, you can keep your parks, you can get your Troutdale Police Department back, you can have those things. But if you don't want to increase your property taxes, then we know they chose not to have those things. That's fine, because as I've looked and I've mentioned many times before, any city our size pays about $6 million a year for their own police department. We're currently paying $4 million this year. Where's that $2 million gonna come from? If you don't increase property taxes or fees to the citizens, you're gonna have to cut parks, and then they're gonna scream bloody murder if you do that. So they have to be given the choice. It's really important to remember that the staff's suggestion to all of you is that not to impose any decisions on the citizens, but to set up a situation where we can transition ourselves to the point where they're given that choice and a ballot measure. So they can choose what they wanna do. The second thing that's important to remember, I pay property taxes like y'all, I pay increased utilities like y'all, but don't forget, the city's budget is not immune to any of those increases. The city's, one of the biggest bills I have is PGE and natural gas out of the wastewater plant to take all your effluent. Whether it's salaries, whether it's utilities, whether it's gas for the trucks, whether it's the cost for the vehicles that we need to do things. The city is like another household in the city of Troutdale. All those costs go up for us too. And so if we just say we're not going to increase costs because everything else is more expensive for people, then we're going to slowly die as a city. We have to keep up with inflation or we lose stuff. So it's important. I get what Councilor White is saying. Nobody likes to pay more money. I don't, nobody does. But we have to give the citizens an opportunity to choose their own path forward. And not bind them unnecessarily next budget year. So.
I wanted to correct some terminology that Councilor White is using. Talked about 3%. Join the fire district, you're looking at $3 to $3.50 per thousand. So your current rate for Troutdale is $3.76. So you have $3.50 of that. You're talking about doubling your city tax.
Yeah, thanks for correcting me, Paul. That's what I was intending to say.
Clackamas is the most expensive fire district in the metro area now. They're at $290. And that's what local option levy.
That includes a levy. In addition.
$290. Fulton Valley is at $225 per thousand. So there's nobody over $3.
They don't have levies or somebody else.
Right, that's why they're paying $290, Clackamas. Their permanent rate is $240. Their levy that the voters approved to increase on themselves, including me, since I'm in Fire District 1, increased me up to $292. Yeah, with the local option levy that the voters approved on top of it. So that's their top with the added levy.
So the state is very thirsty for more funds. It's coming, right? You gotta realize that the citizens may be under a lot of pressure by the time we're going to the plate. And so I just want to know, Ray, that we're prepared that if Gresham drops us or gives us an option we can't accept, and if a fire district should fail a vote, we have to be prepared to stand up a fire department. And that means buying equipment, getting the people in here, that sort of thing. We have to be prepared for that eventuality. Or that possibility, I should say. Can we do that with the budget we have in front of us?
I am not a fire person, but every fire person I have talked to says Troutdale is smoking weed if they think they can finance an adequate fire department, just by itself. Any weed you can get at any store. It's not feasible. That's why Fire District 10 doesn't exist as a fire department anymore, even though they've got a $280 permanent tax rate. And they own 2 fire stations, ours and the one out by Barlow High School, because the cost of engines, I mean, a brand new fire truck is $2 million, it takes 3 years to get. The city of Troutdale doesn't own any fire station. We'd have to rent from Fire District 10 if they let us have the one fire station in town. And then there's all the training and expenses. It's just not possible. The only reason, Sandy had their own fire department, they gave it up because they couldn't afford it any longer. Newburgh gave up their fire department because they couldn't afford it any longer. Most of the cities and other fire districts around have consolidated to get Fire District 1 in Troutdale Valley because small districts can't afford to do it. So for a city our size and our budget, it's just not possible to have the service that we've grown to expect being served by Gresham and what we would be served by a fire district. So it would be great, but I just don't think you could pull it off and keep your citizens safe.
Well, there are other jurisdictions that do it, and it may not be pretty, but it may be something you have to do.
I think
you may not have a choice, is all I'm saying.
I'm just saying, what I've heard from citizens is they'd rather us put any money we can get, if we get offload fire services, is a police department. And I agree 100% that we really got to figure out a way to get our own police department back.
I don't deny that, just have a contingency plan, that's all I'm saying.
And so if you're gonna pick one or the other, I'd go police first.
Right.
Councilor White.
Well, we know no matter what happens with fire after this next year, there's gonna be some additional startup costs. We've already seen some estimates on some of that. And I get another question aside from that. I mean, that's why I'm saying it'd be good to have some extra money, so we could figure this all out. And I wanna know what happens to the money that is currently paid out of the general fund for fire. Would we continue to pay that amount if we were in a district, and that way the citizens would be able to pay less, or does that just evaporate?
What happens in a fire district, if there's a fire district, that's a new government entity that most residents of all cities in the metro area are part of a fire district, and it's a separate line item on your property tax bill, at, say, 290, 1,000, let's just pick that as an example. And then the city no longer would have to pay the 2.8 or $3.25 million that we're currently paying for fire service. That $3.2 million then can be rolled right back into a police department. And then we would have the money, because like I said, experts say we should be spending about $6 million a year under current dollars to have a police department of the size that we would need and we had before. So we're gonna need, at least $2 million over what we're paying this year to maintain a police department. And then there's costs. If you remember the study that we had last summer, a lot of you've seen it already, that says it's gonna be $2 to $3 million of startup costs to buy the cars, the computers, all the infrastructure. And that's why we talked earlier about having money for a consultant to help us figure out that timeline. And police cars are like a year or two out.
All right, I agree with your statement, other than I have seen other options out there for getting stuff quick.
I know it's late, but I would like to, if no one minds, I was going to do this earlier and then Mr. Minkoff left. I was going to actually take public comment again based on some of the discussion that everybody's heard so far. Okay? Anyone opposed to that?
No.
Okay. I'm going to open a public comment period on the proposed budget for fiscal year 25-26. Any citizen may speak to any item relative to the budget. Anyone wishing to speak on Zoom, please unmute yourself and go ahead. You're up.
Me? Okay, good. I just like the members of the budget committee to ask themselves this question. Is every single proposed expenditure in this budget an essential need? I would argue that safety and infrastructure are the criteria as to what is essential: clean water, working sewers, safe roads, fire and police services. And I didn't include parks. Our park system is a wonderful service that Troutdale provides its citizens, but it's not essential. Knowing how many people attend an event is a want, not a safety or infrastructure need. There are still a lot of wants in a budget that really needs to be prioritizing needs. It wouldn't make sense for me to, put my daily Starbucks coffee on a credit card that I couldn't pay off each month. I may want that coffee and think I deserve a treat, but it all adds up if I can't pay the rent or the mortgage. I'm not prioritizing needs. So I don't see how the city can add things we want when we can't pay for what we need. If you want to ask voters to pay extra property taxes for police and or fire, especially during, these kind of crazy economic times, they need to know that you've done everything you can. Gresham really struggled, in the best of times to get that safety funding through. And that was during good economic times with, articles in the local paper that helped explain how underfunded the police department was. So, try to ask yourself, under what scenario would a financially stressed homeowner even consider adding to their property taxes? People are already struggling and you want to ask them to pay even more? And isn't it this committee's responsibility to plan for a possibility that voters won't sign off on higher property taxes? It's not reasonable or responsible to be surprised and unprepared if the community turns down additional taxes. It's not just, well, I guess that's what you voted for. So, consider asking staff for additional budget reductions. I think it was like 1.2 million is what we're asking the voters, or for the voters, what the residents to pay for in terms of a safety utility fee. Shouldn't we match that? It certainly doesn't solve all the budget shortfalls, but it would slow the progression that leads to having to make cuts in safety or infrastructure. I appreciated the comment about death by 1,000 cuts analogy. So wouldn't it be better to make some of those painful cuts as early as possible to reduce the overall cuts needed? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else online wishing to comment on the proposed budget for fiscal year 25-26? Unmute yourself. Okay, go ahead now.
Is that to me? Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to say ditto to exactly what Sandy just said.
Thank you. All right. Let's see, anything else? Anyone in chambers wishing to comment? No? Okay, we're good. All right, this time we'll close the public comment period. Thank you. Okay. Looks like Shirley moved it. Yeah. All right. Anybody else have anything?
Sorry, hey, it's Jeffrey.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Hey, I just have a quick kind of question for us all to ask, which would be, is there a dollar amount that we are looking for to cut from the budget as a total amount that we're all comfortable with? And I would say, what is that dollar amount that you would be comfortable with? And instead of us asking ourselves like, hey, well, I would like to cut this, I would like to cut that, can we just give staff the dollar amount that we need cut and let them go back through the budget and cut that dollar amount in the areas that they know best, that would support a conscious budget that we can agree to? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And we can certainly take that tact. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I kind of remember we did that last time and the cuts kind of hurt, you know, they kind of know where to kick us. And I would suggest that we do both, you know, that this committee look at the budget on things we could, I'm not saying do it without forever, but just this particular year is gonna be critical. And I agree with everything Sandy Glantz just said. She hit it right on the nail on the head.
You're here.
Mr. Young?
Sandy led the charge last year, and other than the skate park, the staff went back and we reduced the budget, squeezed everywhere, knocked out $700,000 last year. We have nailed down, after tonight, what we nailed down already, we have squeezed all the little places that we can find. I can maybe find another 100,000 for you, but beyond that, you have to decide, the council has to decide what programs are gonna be cut. Because I cannot squeeze any more out of this budget unless you decide we're gonna cut park staffs in half. We're going to eliminate First Fridays, we're gonna eliminate the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, we're going to close down the visitor center. You're gonna have, the only way I can save anywhere near what Sandy may be suggesting is if you decide as a policy you wanna lose all those things for Troutdale for next year. And then what happens if the citizens do approve a bond levy next May? And they want to have that stuff, but you took it away. You know how much harder it is to get all that stuff back? That's why we are advocating for a transitional year, that you don't do anything radical for next year. We've got the savings to do it. But again, you live here. And as your city manager, and I may be a lame duck, guys, but I care a lot. I've been working around the city for over 40 years, and I'm gonna care long after I leave. I just would hate to see livability in this town suffer for some short-term gains in a one-year budget. I mean, if things go bad and they don't pass the budget, then next year, cut parks, cut the recreational program. But I don't want to do that to our citizens unless they have a chance to voice in on it. And that's my concern. Because if, that's number one. Number two, if you want to play the game of go through line by line, Jeffrey's right. You guys going through it line by line isn't going to be helpful because you don't really know what is necessary or what not necessarily. And we've squeezed that a lot. But if we're gonna keep meeting, like coming back on Monday, it looks like is what you're all gonna wanna do, have in mind what you wanna do on Monday. And it better be telling staff, if you want more cuts, you better be prepared to tell staff which programs, not just line items, what programs do you wanna lose in your budget? Parks employees, recreation, you know, all the events, that's in the general fund. those are the only places you can cut, because fire and police are what they are, guys. You know, we already know that. You've got to kind of choose the pathway, which you want to go. Start doing those big cuts now, and we're going to spend a lot of hours going through the budget, or not. So, anyway, just make sure when we come back that you know what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, I don't think there is enough that we could cut out of this budget to save the fire and police contracts the way they've been presented to us, and we have negotiated them down, believe me. But they're not gonna just stay down. We meaning me and the committee that has been negotiating, as well, at least I have reached the conclusion that we are going to have to seek a fire district. Every other city around, except us and Wood Village and Fairview and Gresham, do it. And at least we have to put it to the voters to consider joining a fire district. I think I don't think there's enough extra in the budget that would, with devastating cuts, there might be enough to get through this year, but it won't help what we got next year to think about. We're not gonna be able to keep contracting with Gresham for fire. I feel very strongly that if we do a fire district, then the amount that the general fund will save should be spent on police and forming our own police department. That's the future direction to go in Troutdale. And it is the fact that gas and PGE and everything is, food is more expensive and so on. It just isn't, that doesn't solve the problem. We can't make people whole for all the other extra charges they're gonna be charged in this crazy economy we've got. And I think the sensible thing that I see is to try to join a fire district to provide our fire services and use the extra money to form our own police department. That gives us a solid future that's in our control. The fire district, every citizen would vote in that district. It would be devoted only to fire. It wouldn't be under the, we wouldn't have the zero control we have now over Gresham's fire budget. I'm not saying they're profligate or something, but we have no say. And that's not gonna work for the future. It's not gonna work very long even. So we're looking at a situation where I think this budget is pared down enough to give us that option, the future option that might work. I don't know. I've always thought a fire district would be a tough sell in Troutdale, but we might be able to do it, particularly if it's tied to restarting our police department. I think that will be popular. And probably we should tie it to cutting back or eliminating this public safety levy or fee that we're putting on. That should be part of the package. And with those things and some salesmanship, maybe we can get it through. I don't know. Troutdale's always been a tough sell on things like that, but this is so necessary for our city. So I'm in favor of the adjustments that I rattled off earlier to the budget, but otherwise not. I'm not in favor of turning it back over to staff to find another 100,000. I just don't think that's doing our job.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Watt?
The only problem I see with Dave's plan is there isn't a fire district near us that would have a reasonable rate. It's gonna be more than Tualatin Valley. And the residents out there really hate paying that fee. they get a lot for it, but
They should come out here.
I know, so that's a big problem for us. And, you know, we can't just keep continuing to grow our small town government without considering the cost to our residents. And we're kind of at a tipping point. And like Dave at the Three Cities meeting said, you know, it isn't the service that the firefighters were giving us, it was the price that forced us to look elsewhere. And I think the price, we are there. And if we keep adding to it, it's gonna break some people that live in our community. And I think we owe it to them to try to cut out whatever we can. You know, I'm looking at that $1.7 million office remodel at Public Works. You know, isn't there a cheaper option available? You know, a construction trailer, for example. I mean, we're to that point. Everything's a Cadillac in the city, which, you know, I admit it, I appreciate it too. We've got a very nice city and Ray's done a great job. But I don't think you guys really understand how tight it is for our average citizen.
I think most of us get the gravity of this, really, I think we get the gravity of the situation. I don't want to indicate that staff doesn't understand that, because I think they totally do. But you can call it death by 1,000 cuts, or you can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's trying to get, for me, it's trying to get from point A to point B. And I don't know that we've left ourselves enough room to get from point A to point B without doing something more than what we've done. Just my opinion. And I'm one vote.
Can I, oh, sorry, keep going, when you're done, Tanny, I would like to say something.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say, I agree with Mayor Ripna in what he said. I think that, you know, the way that we obtain money for the city to run, that has not kept up with the cost of items that we need to spend to keep the city running, and that's unfortunate. And a fire district, I think, would solve our issues. You know, the costs of paying for both police and fire out of our general fund is really what we're discussing here, and why we're trying to, you know, cut money. I think that there was some decent cuts suggested earlier, like Dave said, the cuts that were suggested earlier, and I think that is significant. I also think that we've done a pretty good job over the past years since Ray's been here to increase our ending fund balance to a point where we can make decisions today to accept the budget how it is, with the idea that we're going to have a public safety utility charge added in to help buffer that cost to the city and its ending fund balance. And so at this time, I would like to make a motion that we accept the budget with those proposed earlier numbers that were to be cut, and accept the budget with those amendments.
You're making a motion, sir?
Yes.
Okay. No.
Well, I can detail them. I rattled them off. Is that all right, Jeffrey?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'll restate the ones I stated earlier. I think that's the ones you're talking about.
Yes. Yes, that is correct, Dave. Yeah, thank you.
That the Beaver Creek Bridge, currently budgeted at $850, be reduced to $675 budgeted. That saves $175,000, and with that, we would restore the $175,000 pay down from rent received on the police facility building. So that's basically two changes. That the police and fire future studies, we allocated $70,000, $50,000 from the imagination station, eliminating the patch 50,000 that was in the budget, and 20,000 was, I keep forgetting which one that was.
Fire study.
A fire study that will meld it into the police and fire future studies. So that's that 70,000. And we reduced the amount budgeted for legal by 50,000, which is actually reduces everything, reduces the whole budget by 50,000. That's 50,000 more than we needed.
And then we had 16,000 on the city manager.
Yes, and one last thing, the city manager budgeted amount is, we would reduce that by 16,000 down to the 210, I think is what we put as our top tier for our new hire of the city manager.
Well, as I responded to the question that was asked about that earlier in writing on Monday, I would argue against that because we're going to spend more than that for the salary because I'm expecting that we're going to have overlap. I'm going to be paying 2 city managers for a period of time.
I'm okay with dropping that last one, if that's agreed. I'll take that out of the motion. Take 16,000.
So what did I miss here on
You
your,
have to stay long enough.
on your reductions?
Earn 16,000.
I think that the reductions that you have posted up there, Eric, are the ones that I was referring to, the legal services, Beaver Creek Bridge, and the Imagination Station repairs.
And the 20,000 reduction is from the Four Cities Fire Study.
What 20,000?
There, we have 20,000, let's go and give you the page number.
It was somewhere, yeah, it was there.
Isn't that part of this public safety studies?
Yes.
Well, it's, the total cost of the public safety studies would be 20,000 from this, whatever Ray is referring to.
Well, we don't have a $20,000 item, we have a $25,000 item.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that what we're talking about?
Take the 25.
Oh,
There's on
A seven,
on page 53 at the bottom of 8211 is Four Cities Fire Study. It was 100,000 this year. We left 25,000 in for next year because.
my bad, it was 25,000, I misspoke.
Well, that's fine, I was confused about what we were talking
Mea
about.
culpa, now you know.
It'll get you like another 3 minutes of work.
so the public safety studies make it 75,000 instead of 70.
Oh, there you go.
Okay,
How about that?
so we're increasing the deficit by about another 820,000.
Well, I put in the MCSO, the incremental, because the budget has what they had when we went to print. The most recent offer is $850,724 more.
Right.
But we might get that down.
Okay,
That's
great.
the number you gotta go with.
And, then the bond subsidy, is in and out with the Beaver Creek Bridge. So you want the public safety studies to be 75,000.
Yeah, because you forgot to add on the list of reduction, 25,000 for Four Cities Fire Study on page 53. But that's going out.
Okay.
Or we can put 70 up there and we can take 25 out, and that way we have 5 more out of the.
Do I need to say that again, or I don't want to be, I don't want my motion to be watered down.
Excuse me?
Oh, do I need to say that again, or are we okay with what Mayor Ripna added to that? Are we comfortable with what Eric put up there?
Are you okay with it?
Yes.
I will second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
This is just approving them, not approving the budget.
Right, just approving the changes that we.
Yeah, approving those as the changes. So those would be the changes that we're making to the entire budget. Okay.
I mean, as much as I feel like we've spent a lot of time here
over the last couple of days talking about it, I still almost kind of feel like it's premature. I know we've had a lot of discussion on there's only so much we can cut out, but I mean, short of doing like a Doge style and just like hacking away at everything, I don't know if we've really spent enough time going over possible cuts and like having the hard conversations we need to have and making more people unhappy, but for the long run, again, just really balancing that out with what we're asking our community to do. And I feel like we do have more of a responsibility to spend a little bit more time, maybe doing one more check on things, really looking at programs if we have to. Maybe seeing again, kind of like what Sandy said, putting off something that would be nice, but not essentially vital to this next year's budget that we can do without. And even if it's a loss in quality for the time being, as long as it's not impacting bigger costs down the road that we're gonna incur, like a roof maybe that is gonna cause more building damage, but maybe we can not upgrade some of the computers and run off the slower ones. You know, like there's different things in there that I think we might still need to spend time looking at. That's what I said.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Mr. Allen?
I would have to agree, this budget is already pretty slim. Some of the things that we're doing in there are actually smart to do. But I think it's gonna be a mistake in the long run to move to 175,000 over. But that's just my opinion.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I just have I know imagination station repairs have been long awaited, and it's kind of a safety situation for children. So I'd like to see that put back in the budget.
It's not part of the motion.
Okay, I thought it was a reduction of 50,000.
Oh, you're right, it is. Okay, so you would reflect that when you vote.
Yeah, and I also just want to say that, government has to live within its means, and their solution just can't be to come to the voters every time they need more money. So I don't think I'll be voting for this.
Ms. Rizzo?
We talked about the 50,000 and they're not gonna be able to use it to do any good. And that's why they're taking it out. They really need 400,000 to do it right, which we can't do this year, so.
That's what Travis said.
I think in which case they'd end up having to just rip up whatever they do just to do it right.
The 50,000 wasn't gonna help.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's
Pretty much a waste.
it would be better to take it out than leave it in, even though you want this imagination station fixed. Could I just say one other thing in favor of this motion? Zach, if this is just a series of adjustments, it doesn't foreclose what you're suggesting going through. If you have other ideas, I think this doesn't foreclose any of those.
Okay.
I would say the purpose of this is just to move it a step forward, but it doesn't preclude further cuts.
I understood like this was going to be a precursor motion to approving the budget.
Well, it was by my mind, but Zach, I'm telling Zach, he doesn't have to take it. We don't have to accept it as a precursor.
All right.
I thought Jeffrey's motion was to adopt the budget with these changes.
Right.
Ken is agreeing, no, the
That's-
motion
Well,
was.
it was
That's what I
To
thought.
adopt the budget with these changes.
That's what I took it
And
as
think
too.
we're gonna-
Zach, I
Oh,
was
it's okay.
wrong.
The council's gonna get this again in about 6 weeks. So if you wanna come up with some cuts and stuff, you've always got a second bite at the apple.
I'll just say, I think all of us would appreciate it if the council voted consistently with how they vote here. All right, call the roll, please.
Look, can I clarify, what is it that is exactly, is this what is intended? Did I capture the numbers correctly? Is this what you and Counselor want, Mr. Mayor.
There was not in the motion adding back in the 850 for the police. That was not part of the motion.
Yes,
as I
that was
recall.
not.
That was not part of the motion itself.
I'm just trying to reflect the conversation that's occurred during the evening and the recognition that we put in the budget what was available when we printed, and we know it's 850,000 less than what the sheriff is willing to do. Now, if you want to take it out of the motion, fine.
But the thing is that whatever the real number is for police, it will be in the budget that the council gets in June. So whether you add the 850 back in or leave it out, it's not going to matter because the council's gonna get the real number in June anyway. It's a plain with just.
With all due respect, I would say that it does matter because then it would come out of contingency. It would come out of those funds, and we're anticipating at times that contingency is not going to be spent.
Hey, this is Jeffrey. I want to say that I did say in my wording that I was wanting to, implement the changes that Eric had published up on the board, and that was one of the numbers in there. The one number that was not in there was the $25,000 Four Cities fire, so that was added back in, which Mayor Ripma so eloquently added in with his. So I feel like we're okay with my motion still, with these numbers that are on the board right now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barney? On the motion.
I don't know, with the way the discussion's been going, I feel like we don't even fully understand the motion. There's a lot of confusion, so I don't feel like we're even at a point to have a vote yet.
Okay, I'm gonna try to run over this as best I can. What we have is, we have a motion on the floor to approve the changes to the budget that you see on the screen. And then there would be a subsequent motion to approve the budget with these changes. Am I correct, everyone?
Is that what?
That is correct. That's what I proposed.
So this is just a motion standalone to amend the proposed budget.
No, sorry, it was to amend the proposed budget and then to approve the budget as written with these changes.
That's what Ken and I had down.
So it would have to be, then this would basically be a motion to approve the budget in its entirety with these changes.
That is correct, Tanny. Thank you.
Okay, so does everyone understand that? We'd be approving the budget in its entirety with the changes that are on the screen. All right, everyone clear? That's the motion.
One comment on that.
Yes.
Since the 7 members such as myself won't know what the final number is, once you figure out the IGAs with fire and police, is there a way you can notify us, email us, the end result?
We haven't voted on this yet.
No, but I mean, when that time comes, we won't be here.
Yeah.
If we vote this through tonight, as it's proposed to do, can we be then people such as myself and
a lot of things can happen.
yeah, that you let us know what the final is.
Let's roll the motion.
It'll be a public vote,
Okay, yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Okay,
Okay,
Councilor Allen.
since I'm really new to this,
Okay.
I need it really basically explained to me. If one thing is to vote, and then after the vote, what happens? It goes, what, where does it go?
If the vote passes, the budget passes with these adjustments only. Okay?
It goes to the city council.
Yeah.
I think what you're
There
asking.
is no other discussion on the budget. Okay, no additions, no deletions, it stops. Okay?
Well, except for the council can make changes later on.
Well, right,
It's sent to council.
those are the other people, I'm just worried about these. Okay, all right?
Okay. But we're still in a deficit, correct?
Yes. Okay. All right. Ms. Rizzo.
I feel we need more discussion and should come back
Okay.
Monday.
We concur. Okay, but we have to vote on the motion.
Right.
All right, if we're ready, we will call the roll.
Mayor Whitman,
Yes.
Gene Bent,
Yes.
Counselor Andrews,
No.
Heidi Timmerman,
No.
Counselor Allen,
No.
Chris Barney,
No.
Counselor Lund,
Yes.
Paul Wilcox,
No.
Counselor White,
No.
Victoria Rizzo,
No.
Counselor Davidson,
No.
Rich Allen,
No.
Counselor Laney,
No.
Canning Stephenson.
No. Motion fails. Okay.
Pointing at Victoria. What you brought up earlier,
Which part?
oh, continuation on Monday.
Oh.
Yeah. Given the time, we entertain a motion to adjourn, and we can come back to this on Monday. Give everyone some time to think about it, and talk to your neighbors.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
If I could have one comment before we go, excuse me. Please, come back Monday prepared to give answers to what problems you think there are in the budget. Don't just come back and say, we should cut some more. Let us know what you want to cut, how much you want to cut, so that staff can take your desires and turn it into real product. Because if you don't know what you want to do with the budget, especially those who voted no, you're not gonna help us move the ball forward, and that's all I would be asking you, staff, is come back prepared to tell us exactly what you think we should do with the budget, so we can have an active and productive discussion on it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second to adjourn.
Well, in response to Ray's comment, is staff gonna look at any additional cuts or no?
No. I'd have to be told, shut the parks down, close the visitor center. I can't cut anything because at this point, as you're right indicated, there's really no fat to squeeze out of it that's gonna get to a number that I don't know yet.
Do we need to ask for adjournment with continuation on Monday, or?
We're going to adjourn, and we will come back on Monday. So it's not
So I assume staff would welcome suggestions
yes.
before Monday.
Oh, hey, my email is always taking emails.
And so, I mean, honestly, to make this productive, any ideas, specific ideas, cuts, I think staff should be sent those ideas.
Send them in.
Please.
Any ideas that you have? All right? Anything further? Okay. Thank you all for your time. I know this is very difficult. Reminds me of some medical exams sometimes, but it is what it is, and we're gonna get through this as best we can. So with that, all in favor for adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll see you Monday at 6 p.m.